y'all doing? Good morning on the West Coast. Good morning in the Central. Good morning on the East Coast. How y'all doing, family? Happy Saturday to you. Happy Memorial Day weekend, family. I hope you intended to do something fun and safe this weekend. It's so fabulous out here in Southern California. I get out here every day, y'all. I'm not even gonna lie. I practice my social distancing, but I definitely make sure I'm on these lovely beaches. It's 75, 80 degrees, and all is well in the world of Nirvana. You know who it is. Angela Nirvana, your hostess with the mostest on the Friends of ADOS TV channel. Shout out to Wycoon, oh good. Shout out to Dawn Page, C-Back. What's up, baby? Hakeem, Malik, Ali, Ahmed, Daye. Welcome. Jewel Dropper, Alaska, ADOS in the house. Keith. I saw Jeffrey Skeet Somersault. New York City, Ground Zero, COVID-19. I'm so glad you guys are here today. You know, I love my brother Marlon Aldridge. Woo, but we have some firefights over how ADOS needs to move as a block this election cycle. What's up, William Dickens? Thank you for joining the live. Yes. So we literally go to war. I mean, it's to the point where my daughter's like, can y'all just not talk about politics, because y'all don't seem to agree and y'all both get very animated and very passionate. Well, I, of course, agree that we need to show up collectively as a bloc and give the Democratic Party, at least the presidents, our ass to kiss. I'm trying not to use expletives. I'm going to try to be a fucking lady today, okay? I did it again. Anywho, I am really going to try to keep the expletives out of my mouth, but Biden's recent stunt on Charlemagne's show, the blatant disrespect, him giving us his ass to kiss where the black vote is concerned, what's up, Trey? Thank you for joining the live. Has me fired up. Y'all see me cutting the fool over in the Facebook space, just clowning. Folks are calling me a Trump supporter. I'm taking hits for the team, y'all. I'm taking hits for the ADOS tribe. ADOS coming hard for a sister. They are pissed that I want to put in ADOS in place of Jim Crow crime bill Joe and in place of prosecutor cover-up Chloe. That's what I call Klobuchar. That's my nickname for her. Prosecutor cover-up Chloe. Okay? So they met. What's up, Shamira? Thank you, baby, for joining the live. Listen, let me help you understand. I am so tired of being on the bottom. And I believe in a Democratic down ballot strategy to help the 41% of us who rely on government assistance by design. Okay? Marlon Aldridge, however, says we don't have the numbers. We don't know the fucking numbers. He's hiding in fish grease that we are promoting a Democratic down ballot strategy instead of continuing to vote lesser of two evils. Okay? My argument is voting lesser of two evils hasn't gotten us anywhere but on the bottom, disproportionately dying all over the country from the COVID. Like, if this was a strategy that was working, why are we on the bottom in every metric? I mean, every metric. Job discrimination, environmental racism. Listen. So, he is here today to make his very cohesive arguments to try and win some votes from the ADOS party to his side. I'm going to listen. I'm going to be objective. I'm going to be open-minded. I'm going to do my best to, they're saying they don't see nothing. What's going on? Hold on, y'all. Hold on. Y'all don't see me? Angela Atley, thank you for joining the live, baby. That's my Up Church family. Donald Wallace, It's not the same Donald Wallace from Dayton, Ohio. Welcome, James Bradford Brewer. Okay, y'all, we may have to start this over because it looks like it's buffering. Can y'all tell me? Oh, Rashi, I love you. That's my church family. I really can't cuss now. I got church family up in here. Listen, can y'all see and hear me? Because my watch party is saying they don't see me. Okay, Diana yelled at. Okay, watch party. Y'all need to come on over to Friends of ADOS TV because the watch party is buffering and that's no fun. I done lost my guest. He done dropped off. I got to call him on the phone. Y'all know this stuff is, you know, I don't have my team yet, y'all. I don't have my team and it's coming. Phoebe, what's up? Oh, y'all, this is going to be a fire show. Okay, everybody in the chat, the people on Friends of ADOS TV see me. Okay, so y'all, if y'all can hear me, I'm going to type this for them, y'all, because there's a bunch of folks over there. Hold on. Let me see if I can exit out and then come back in. Hold on, y'all. Please bear with me. We going to have us a show. You know the show must go on, right? Okay, so the people here on Friends of ADOS TV can see me, but not my watch party. Let me end this and start it over. Let's see. Y'all just bear with us, sister. I love y'all black. I love y'all strong. This is going to be a fire show and I can get it going. Y'all know how it is, honey. This is how it is when you got a no-budget production, okay? You the engineer, you the producer. Oh, okay, so yeah, you end up being all these things. So just give me a second to get my kinks worked out. Oh, Lord. Okay, I might not be able to do it like that. Hold on, y'all. Let me see. Okay, hold on, y'all. Okay, I might not be able to do it like that. Hold on, y'all. Okay, what's it doing? Okay, hold on, y'all. Okay, it looks like the watch party has been fixed. Y'all may have to go out and come back in or come over to the Friends of ADOS TV channel, okay? Okay, let me get my illustrious guest, Mr. Marlon Aldridge, on the phone since some kind of way he fell out of the queue. We won't be able to see his handsome face. Okay, Lord. Okay, so I left that for now. I hope that's still running, y'all. If not, we'll start the watch party after the show concludes. You guys can come over to Friends of ADOS TV. If you're experiencing buffering in the watch party, come over to Friends of ADOS TV and you can watch it unimpeded because everyone in the chat is saying they can see and hear me clearly. So let's get Marlon on the phone. We got to get this show going. Hey, Professor. Everybody's listening to you because for some reason you dropped out of the queue. So we can't see you, but we're here. I mean, we got folks in the watch party. We got folks in the chat. Everybody is waiting to hear from you. I want to thank you, first of all, for always being willing to come on and share your views. I was sharing with my audience when I introed the show how much you and I spar over this issue of voting Democratic down ballot versus voting for Biden. Now, you are fully aware of the recent Charlemagne show with Biden, where he just offended ADOS all the way to our pinky toes, okay? We are hotter than fish grease. We aren't seeing any real serious Black agenda nor reparations this election cycle. And nobody can sit up here and argue that we haven't been fighting for that. We have been fighting for a few years now. It just came into the national and international awareness when Kamala Harris threw her hat in the ring to run for president in January of last year on MLK's birthday on Howard's campus. So it's been on the debate stage thanks to the work we've been doing in these social media spaces. It's become a national debate topic that most of the candidates, with the exception of Marianne Williamson and Tom Perez, run from the topic of reparations and a Black agenda. Now Biden has put out a Lift Every Voice Except ADOS plan that he clearly on the Charlemagne show he doesn't even know his own plan. He didn't even know the name of his own plan. So clearly somebody's writing this for him and he's not even familiar. He's not even familiar. That's how weak an offer it is to the people. And yet he comes on Charlemagne's show and offends us. And you posted something earlier. Let me get my notes. You posted something earlier in Facebook, and you stated that race baiting. I said the question I posed after what you posted. Wait, hold on one second. Let me get to my notes. So many notes, y'all. Just give me a second. Okay. Oh, I can't find it. Oh my goodness. Okay. You posted something that basically alludes to the fact that all of the presidents race bait to corral the conservative white vote. Basically, you were trying to make the point that whites, by and large, vote conservative, and how hurtful that is to ADOS when they do that. But I would venture to say that, especially when you say it's hurtful because they control, if they're in control of the Senate and they control the Supreme Court and they control the presidency, that is very hurtful to ADOS. I'm not for a Republican Congress, just FYI. But I have seen recently where the Supreme Court has done harm to us. Well, you disagree. With the Comcast case, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Comcast. What we believe was for a different interpretation of our 1866 civil right law to sue for discrimination. I want you to speak on how that's not what they voted unanimously for, because you said it was something in the way he wrote up his suit. I'll let you address that. And then recently I saw, and I've not been able to do the research, but I saw where the Supreme Court ruled almost unanimously that police can shoot first and think later. It seems very extreme and very bizarre that Ruth Ginsburg and not Sotomayor would agree to such a ruling. And I still have to dig into that before I really have a show about that ruling. But with all of that said, you've got a perspective about all of it that you believe is more strategic versus emotional. And I brought you here today for you to help make the case for why ADOS should vote for Biden despite no exchange. Introducing family, Marlon Aldridge. He's a college physics professor. He has served in 2 branches of the armed forces. He is a graduate of Morehouse College, and he is the co-founder of the Friends of ADOS Super PAC. Marlon, I'll take a breath and let you come on in and tell the audience hello, and let's get into this topic.
All right. Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me back. And good afternoon to your audience as well. It's always a pleasure to speak to our community and to have these important discussions. So I welcome that opportunity. First, I'd like to say that 100% of nothing, or should I say 10% of something, is better than 100% of nothing. And that's where we are in 2020. We are outnumbered. And I try to make a mathematical case as well as an historical case and try to root that in behavior, okay? And what do I mean by that? If you were to take 100 people, 100 voters, 12 of those people would be black. 73 of those people would be white. Okay, so that's about a 6-to-1 ratio. We are outnumbered. And the truth of the matter is that people, for the most part, vote along ideology and to a large extent on tradition. Okay, what do I mean by that? We've heard the term used, conservative. And normally people, all of us are conservative in some way. All of us are conservative in some way. But when we hear that term used, we normally hear people that are conservative. For the most part, they fall under the Republican Party. And for those of us that know our history, we know that the Republican Party was started to abolish slavery. That was one of its primary purposes was to abolish slavery, while the Democratic Party was founded to maintain slavery. So it's very important for us to understand that. And some of us think that history is static. Okay, history is in fact behavior. So when you want to understand current day behavior, it is very important that we go back and look at past behavior. One of the places to find past behavior is in history. Okay, but having said that, history and behavior are not static. Okay, so I start from the premise, number one, that we have to play the hand that we are dealt. Okay, we are vastly outnumbered. And as we've seen, the Republicans do not need us to win control of the government. As a matter of fact, if you were to look at state government, what you would find out is that Republicans control 22 state governments. I'm talking about the governorship, the Senate, and the legislature, what we would refer to as a trifecta, whereas the Democrats only control 14 trifectas. Again, the Republicans control 22 trifectas at the state level, while the Democrats control 14. If you were to look over the last 28 years, the Republicans have had an advantage in controlling the federal government as compared to the Democrats, on the order of about 60% to about 40%. Now, if you were to look at that historically, the Democrats have dominated the federal government. Now, I'm talking about since the beginnings of the founding of this country. But over the last 28 years, the Republicans have held the advantage. And what my fear is that will only get worse as we move forward because of the changing demographics. Now, in terms of the current conversation about race baiting, as you alluded to in the post, they all race bait. And I can remember as far back as 1980, I can remember every last presidential election in which, and I can remember the statements and appeals made by every presidential candidate. I'll start with Reagan. This was back in 1980. He gave his first speech 7 miles from Philadelphia, Mississippi. And that's a town associated with the murders of Cheney, Goodman, and Swarner. And he did that to appeal to his Southern voters, following the strategy of Richard Nixon and his Southern strategy. Okay, that is how Richard Nixon became president. Now, if people remember, he became president in '68, and the Democrats controlled Congress, both Senate and House. So he needed an advantage. One of the ways he gained that advantage was to appeal to Southern whites and their traditions of wanting to maintain a position over black people. And one of the things that came out of his mouth, in addition to showing up for his first campaign speech in a place like that, is I remember the welfare queen remarks. He would make public speeches, and everyone knew he was referring to black women as welfare queens. George Herbert Walker Bush, for people that were around during that time, and I would assume that, of course, your younger viewers wouldn't remember this, was his Willie Horton ads to gain an advantage over his opponent, who I think would have been Walter Mondale. I'm trying to recall backwards, but he was down in the polls, and he put that ad on TV. Now, Willie Horton was in prison for murder. Okay, and I'm trying to think who his Democratic challenger was, but he had let Willie Horton out on furlough. And this was used as a dog whistle, and George Herbert Walker Bush ended up winning the presidency. Bill Clinton was no different. His attack on the famed rapper Sister Soldier back during the day. Soon after that, he elevated in the polls. George Bush II, George W. Bush, accused McCain's adopted daughter from, now check this out, Bangladesh. He put the story out that she was a Negro child that McCain had fathered out of wedlock. And this one I want to pause a little bit because he was appealing to two constituencies. First, those Southern white racists, or racists in general, but he was also appealing to evangelicals when he mentioned that he had fathered a child out of wedlock. So that's one of the things that when I'm listening to the conversations, even the conversations that we have, is that we do not realize that the president has many constituencies that he has to appease. And this race baiting is nothing but an appeal to really the moderate, what we would refer to as the independent whites, who are sitting on the sideline waiting for a president to appeal to another group, i.e. appealing to the black vote, while sometimes that is enough to have them vote for the Republican candidate. And if you look at the historical record over the last 28 years, you will find that white people, by and large, have voted for the Republican president about 56 to 57% of the time. But if you would look at the number of solid Republicans, you'd only find out that is about 30%. So there's a 27% margin there, which would comprise of the white independents. They're just waiting to vote for the candidate who is palatable, especially along the standpoint of race. Now, Barack Obama was no different. And I had made the mention too many to list. Now, to peep out of black folks. Now, let's talk about that. Barack Obama came in during the Great Recession to the fanfare of many blacks who turned out to about 13%. Now, keep in mind, we're about 12% or so of the electorate. Normally, we're about in between 12 to 13% of the electorate. We had the highest turnout among all voters in 2000, either his first election, 2012, or excuse me, 2008 or 2012. The highest turnout out of all voters for the first time in history. Normally we trail, because I'm talking about percentage-wise, we normally trail. But I wanted to give you some instances. He had a real contentious relationship with the Congressional Black Caucus, and they wanted to go after him, but they could not because of the fawning among Black people in general of the nation's first Black president. I'm going to give you some remarks here that they went after him on unemployment. They wanted a jobs program. Matter of fact, they went it on tour because during his presidency, 2011, Blacks saw their highest unemployment in 27 years. And so they embarked on a For the People jobs tour, and they traveled through Atlanta, Cleveland, Detroit, Miami, and Los Angeles. Cities like Detroit and Los Angeles were dealing with a Black unemployment rate of nearly 20% at a time when the national average was around 9%. And caucus members were not happy. To make matters worse, the Obama administration announced the focus on, now check this out, rural jobs initiative. CDC members noticed that there was no similar urban jobs initiatives. Our great senator, or should I say Congress Representative Maxine Waters, wanted to go in on him. And during that tour, she was looking for permission to go in on the nation's first Black president. They needed permission from people like us, the general population. But I can go on and on. Right? I remember him denouncing or repudiating
Jeremiah Wright.
Jeremiah Wright. About 2 weeks after that, it was Father's Day, and he went on national TV and said that Black men need to be more responsible for their children. Jesse Jackson about had a heart attack and said that he wanted to basically castrate him. Okay, and of course they fell out after that, and Jackson had to come back and apologize because his son was part of Obama's campaign, presidential campaign. HBCUs saw a loss of funds. And to make matters worse, Obama came back wanted to introduce a program for community colleges where you get free tuition for 2 years of community college. And the HBCU presidents were not happy about that because that would take away from their programs. The list goes on and on, but the point I'm trying to make is that we seem to feel that we are the only constituency that matters when there are many constituencies that matter. And then to add to that, we seem to overrepresent our numerical strength, and it's really the numerical strength that determines who becomes president to a large extent. And then I'm also amazed by the fact that here we are now complaining about Obama, who has very little power. He's not president anymore. And here we're making a big deal out of that when the CDC, who we also complain about, knew during the time that he wasn't doing the things that are focusing on the initiatives that they wanted him to focus on. One of the most primary initiatives being a jobs program because of that high unemployment. So here we are, 4 years later, talking about Obama when the more appropriate time would have been when he was president. So that sort of amazed me how I'm looking out at our community, and you remember the expression, we are a day late and a dollar short. So,
well, let me let you
Biden,
go ahead. Joe Biden, what?
Do I have to? I don't think I have to mention Trump. This is a contemporary time, so for those of us that are not aware of Trump's racist comments, we really haven't been paying attention. So I'm not even going to mention his. Turn the TV on any day, and he's saying something that's outlandish. He went overboard. In my opinion, he's the dumbest, most ignorant president, at least in my lifetime. And I'm also amazed that some of these supposedly or seemingly Russian-born Negroes are crazy about Donald Trump. So I'm also surprised about that.
Okay. Let me jump in and give you a breath. Would you say that Obama's selection in Biden as a VP was race baiting?
He needed to appease a certain segment of the population. Biden, regardless of what people know about him, is a moderate. He's what you would call a moderate. He's one of the few moderates that are left in Congress, okay? And what I mean by moderate, I'm talking about a person who will compromise with the other party. That's been another thing that is happened since really the 70s, is this polarization within our society where people become more entrenched in their ideologies. And so the moderation, for the most part, goes away. And so you have two polarized sides. You have either strongly Democratic or strongly Republican, and the moderates are, for the most part, have fallen to the wayside because of what the society at large is demanding. And a lot of that, for the most part, is driven by race. As a matter of fact, I would say more than anything, that polarization is driven by race.
We are on the bottom in this country and have been. It just feels to me like this voting for lesser of two evils strategy is not serving us. I have been pushing, as well as the ADOS movement, to show up to the polls in Obama-style numbers, fill in American descendant of chattel slavery for the president and for the vice president, and vote Democratic down ballot. Now, I've been getting a lot of pushback, even from you, for promoting that, because in one breath, everyone says we're too little to matter. And in the next breath, folks are treating us as if we are Trump supporters when the numbers don't support that. The numbers show that we, by and large, voted for Hillary Clinton, not me, the last election cycle, very close to Obama-style numbers. And yet, Trump still got elected, even with Hillary Clinton's 3 million more popular votes. And yet, folks want to charge us with why she lost to Trump. I guess let me just kind of break the question up. How can we be the deal breaker in who gets elected and then not be the deal breaker because we don't have a big enough number to make a difference? How can we be both of those things at the same time?
Well, you've never heard me say that. I've always said to you that those that believe that the way that you guys do, at least some of you do, aren't significant voters, and many of you probably don't vote anyway. You're just voicing your opinion, which is really stems from some type, some anger, some misplaced. I'm not going to say that it's misplaced, but it stems from an emotional perspective, and because, and really, to be honest with you, I don't think some of those people that voice those complaints, they're probably not voters anyway. So
I'm a voter, and most of the people in the ADOS movement have education, and they work, and they vote. And this is a strategy we're talking about invoking since Obama. Many of us have awakened to the fact that he was more invested in race baiting than he was being revolutionary as we had hoped. So we went and got educated. I know you don't think that Yvette Carnell is teaching political education. I disagree. I learned a lot of what I now know about how we factor into politics through her show. So I don't agree with the fact that we're not voters. I believe that we're waking up, we're getting politically educated since Obama, and we are deciding to leverage Democratic down ballot like the white folks do. They don't get a pushback when they decide to invoke their right to vote Democratic down ballot. But there's a faction of you out there, I would venture to say you included, that believe the lesser of two evils strategy is all we've got to get 10% when we are at an egregious disadvantage. So much so that we're mostly dying from COVID due to job discrimination and environmental racism. So if this lesser of two evils strategy was working, why are we in the fight of our lives to prevent extinction at this point? I don't get why we should continue in a strategy that clearly isn't working for us. Can you explain why we should continue in that strategy? You talked about the numbers. I still go back to my question. How can our vote be a deal breaker for the Democratic Party and them constantly give us their ass to kiss every election cycle, imploring upon us to wait to our own peril? How can it be both?
well, let me say this first. Now, if your opinion is that you had a great political education from Yvette and Tone, and from that, you derive from that to be politically inactive is a strategy, then from my perspective, I would say that wasn't a good political education. I'll give you an example.
Wait, let me stop you, because you see, why do you conflate the two? No one said to stay home. This is not a dog whistle to stay home and to be politically inactive. We are showing up and exercising our right to not vote for a president and vice president who clearly have given us their ass to kiss, who clearly have no reparations, no Black agenda. We are trying to stop this cycle of voting lesser of two evils and demanding something in exchange for our vote. We have said that we will show up and vote Democratic down ballot. We will deliver a Democratic Congress, even though they haven't earned it, in our humble opinion, based on our political education. So please don't conflate the two. Don't conflate a strategy of Democratic down ballot that white folks exercise and other groups exercise to being politically inactive, ergo politically uneducated.
Let me answer that by saying this. I agree with Alan Dershowitz, the famed legal scholar, who said actually last year during Trump's impeachment that the president is more powerful than a king. Okay? The president can act alone in many regards and has done so. Obama was an example. When Obama came into office, there was a backlash within the white community, in particular the right-wing evangelical, what we would recall to the right-wing conservative part of the Republican Party. Okay, this period also saw the ascendant of the Tea Party, who put many Congress people into office in 2011. Okay, that's what I would refer to as being politically active. If you're not satisfied with your representatives, you replace them. Okay, so they are responsible then for some of the policies that we see being put forth today. Now, to me, it's always beneficial to make comparisons. Now, let me tell you why this not voting for the president and putting in ADOS is not a good strategy. I've already made my first point. The president is the most powerful piece on the chessboard. He is more powerful than a king. Okay? You look at your individual legislators, they act in concert with other legislators. 435 in the House, 100 in the Senate. Okay, they can chair committees, be part of committees, and have put forth much legislation, even till this day, that sits on Mitch McConnell's desk. Over 330-something pieces of legislation at last count sitting on Mitch McConnell's desk. He's the majority leader in the Republican-controlled Senate. Now, for those of us that really pay attention to politics, I'm wondering, did those that taught you about politics tell you that the president, the Republicans, when Barack Obama came into office, made a pledge that they wouldn't pass any legislation that he favored? So he was forced. Now, this was during the midterms. The Democrats controlled the House his first 2 years in office, and then the Republicans took over during the midterms. They took over the Senate, and Mitch McConnell went on TV and said that they had vowed and that he would ensure that no legislation that Obama favored would be passed through the Senate. Now, of course, this was on Fox News, and then he laughed about it. Okay, I don't remember seeing many of these so-called politically educated folks talking about that. All I see is the demonization of the Republican Party. Now, that to me is dishonest, because if you really want to be critical, you need to look at what each party is doing that harms us, and then try to come up with some type of remedy like the Tea Party did. That's true political education. Okay, if you are the logic behind not voting for a president, for the most part, provides an advantage to the Republican Party, who already has the advantage via some tricks, voter suppression, extreme gerrymandering, and things of these nature. And we know that to be the case because if you look at Hillary Clinton, she won the popular vote by 3 million votes, but she still lost. And so we have to think about not in our calculus, we have to also consider how is it that the Republican Party or a presidential candidate in this nature, how is it that they can put mechanisms in place that would allow the candidate who has the popular vote to lose? And the same could be said of Al Gore when he ran against George Bush. Al Gore won the popular vote. Bush was installed as president. So how is it that the Republicans have in their favor the Electoral College? So I don't hear many people talking about that. I don't hear many people talking about the majority of the Black electorate residing in the South to the tune of 55%. But when you look at what they contribute to presidential campaigns, and I'm only talking about presidential campaigns, what you find out is that even Barack Obama, he only won, I think, 2 states, 2 southern states. There's 16 southern states. I think he won 2. Maryland and Delaware are southern states. I think he won. Those were the only 2 states that he's won. But I'm going off of memory on that. If we look at Bill Clinton, he won 4 of those 16 states. So Bill Clinton and I'm trying to think who else. Well, Bill Clinton and Jimmy Carter won more southern states than Barack Obama did. Okay, so there's many things that we need to include in our calculus, but I can tell you this, here's ultimately why the down ballot strategy makes no sense. Let's propose a scenario. Let's say that by hook or by crook, that Democrats control both the House and the Senate, okay, by slight margins, which is typically the case over the last 27, 28 years. No party has a significant advantage numerically in the House or the Senate. So that means that they barely pass votes, somewhere in the 50 percentile range. Now, let's say if by hook or by crook that we were to get a reparations bill passed in the House and the Senate, and then it goes to the president, who's a Republican. He vetoes the bill. Now the threshold to override the veto goes to 67%. What do you think is going to happen? Of course, we know what's going to happen because there's only slight margins of victory in either House or the Senate. So that reparations bill doesn't become law. That's one reason, if the primary goal of ADOS is to achieve reparations, then the concept or the strategy, if you can call it that, of a down ballot makes no sense whatsoever.
And you're basically saying that it makes no sense because we can't get anything done because the president is all powerful.
He's that powerful, more powerful than a king.
Shana McGee says Republicans won key states to win by the Electoral College. And this is why I believe that, and many of us do, that the Electoral College needs to be dismantled. It needs to be one person, one vote. I don't know how else we win. One person, one vote. So my audience is saying that if we continue to do the same thing, how does any of this change? How do we, okay, this year, this election cycle, we get 10%. Next election cycle, we get 8%. Next election cycle, we get 6%. If we don't, I guess I'm at a loss as to how to alter the downward spiral that we've been on for the past 60 years. I don't understand
Well,
this. Okay.
Let me tell you. We do what works. For example, we do what the Tea Party did. Now, of course, being co-founder of Friends of ADOS PAC, ultimately what our goal is to over-leverage our representation in the House of Representatives. Right now, blacks have 12% representation in the House of Representatives, which is close to our representation in the population. I want you to imagine that if we were to over-leverage that by upping that percentage to 25% of the House of Representatives. I'm talking about electing and or replacing ADOS representatives in the House of Representatives so that, in effect, because of the polarization and the slim margin of votes in order to pass legislation, we, in effect, then, if we vote as a bloc in the House of Representatives, shut the whole Congress down. Nothing can proceed unless we say it proceeds. Okay? In other words, we over-leverage our representation in the House of Representatives. The House of Representatives, by the Constitution, is the only branch of government that can pass appropriations bills. Okay, if we are to get paid, it would probably happen via an appropriations bill. Okay, so that's what we do, is we use strategies that work. This idea of allowing anyone, or let me say it another way, the strategy of shaming is not a strategy at all. And that's what I'm hearing. You need to shame the Democrat. That's not a strategy. Okay, that is conceding a victory to the Republicans. So if you had a true political education, a true political education would consist of how the political process actually works. If we don't consider how bills are developed, how bills go to committees, where everyone else gets to put their input in, if we don't understand who controls the agenda in the House, which is the Speaker of the House, if we don't understand that the majority leader in the Senate of the party that is the majority controls the agenda, then from that standpoint, I cannot see how anyone would say that they have received a great political education when they can't even tell you how the political process proceeds in the House, in the Senate, and in the executive branch. And these are some of the things that I've heard that are missing from the conversations that we are having among ADOS in particular, the Black community in general. I want you to imagine also that if we had not fawned over our nation's first Black president and listened to our Congressional Black Caucus, they would have been able to put the pressure on him in order for him to have a jobs program for urban communities. Now, I don't know if the audience knows this, but the Congress did such a thing in 1987. They put a bill forth, and it was passed for a urban jobs initiative. They tried to put the same thing forward in 2011, and the best that Obama could offer was a rural jobs initiative. Now, why would he do such a thing? He knew his position as president was a tentative one. What do I mean by that? If he did not appease that other constituency, those 73 people that I'm talking about, out of those 100 that are white, then he would have not been reelected And most important to that, if he did not watch what he do, he would have most likely been impeached. Okay, so there are both pros and cons to our first black president. Okay, and these are all the things that a good political education would teach us. We didn't pay attention to our black Democratic leaders who wanted to put pressure on this man, but couldn't because the black community was in love with Obama. Now, here the same community comes a day late and $1 short, complaining about a president who's been out of office for going on 4 years. To me, that makes no sense. That isn't something that a good political education would create. Is conflict like that.
Well, let me help you. To your point, many of us who voted for Barack Obama for 2 terms, myself included, say ouch somebody, was not politically educated at the time we did it. We got caught up in identity politics, which is why it failed miserably this time around with Kamala and Corey. Because we started, to Yvette Carnell's credit, for me, looking into people's record to make an informed decision as to whether or not we would support them. So, yes, I believe still that she was responsible for getting us awakened to the fact that we even needed to be politically educated instead of voting emotionally off of identity politics. We knew something was awry when, after the 2 terms, we were still waiting for Obama to help the ADOS family at large. We didn't quite know what happened, other than we felt duped. And so, yes, I think what Yvette shared and what you're sharing now is vitally important, because I want to get this right. But I also what you're sharing with me makes me feel like we will never have a revolution within our politics that gives us the advantage we are long overdue. That we have to continue collecting the crumbs from the table that was built by our ancestors, that everyone else eats from but us. We are on the bottom in every metric. And to continue to do this, knowing that nothing is being offered in exchange. Nothing. I don't get it. Let me go to my audience. They're very active. If you guys have questions or comments, please place them in the chat and we can ask them of Marlon and get his perspective, because I don't know. I don't know when we're supposed to stand up with this information. I hear you and it makes sense to me, what you're sharing. And I thank you for pushing us in this way. And I'm trying to really get out of my emotions and do what's in the best interest of our people. I guess I still can't connect the dots to how a lesser of 2 evil strategy has served us. Other than, we can still move about freely and unimpeded by and large. It doesn't help it to be more palpable when I see our brothers and sisters being assassinated by the race soldiers with impunity. When I see even black on black murder and assassination of each other, which I know is a direct reflection of institutional systemic racism. All of it starts there with the root. And so I'm still, hold on, guys. Got a little sensitivity going over here in my keys, in my mouse. Okay. Jamie says, William Dickens says, hold on. That doesn't seem like the top of the chat. I don't know what happened. Okay, guys, I'll do my best and then I'll try to jump over on the live and see what's happening. William Dickens says, I was referring to when he said it's more white people. Oh, God, that jumped. Hold on. Well, that comment went away. I don't get this thing, y'all. Hold on. Jamie Burtnoy says, I do agree that not voting is not a good strategy. It would be better to gather as a group visible in protest if you're not going to vote. At least it could give a presence to the frustration. Jamie, we're not suggesting people not vote. We're suggesting that they write in American descendant of chattel slavery. I was able to type it in during the primary. That they write in American descendant of chattel slavery for the president and the VP and vote Democratic down ballot to deliver a Democratic Congress that can protect the 41% of ADOS who rely on government assistance by institutional systemic racism design. So we're writing that in or typing it in, however you're set up to vote, to let them know that this is the way we protest, not give you the vote. Neither of them have earned the vote. Neither of them are offering reparations nor a Black agenda. And so please let me help everyone understand the ADOS movement is not encouraging political laziness by staying home. We need, in my opinion, to deliver a Democratic Congress to protect the 41% of us that rely on government assistance. But Marlon's argument is that the president is all powerful. So if we have a Democratic Congress and Trump as the president and Pence as the VP, more than likely, they can veto and override the things that they're trying to get done, even as a Congress. To me, the hands will be tied, and by 2024, they can come back with reparations and a Black agenda. I don't know what other time we will have to stress this protest, especially since Hispanics are on the eclipse of outnumbering us, and they're already doing things to placate to them over us. Hillary Clinton even made a statement that, they're running for they need the Latina vote, is basically what she was saying. To hell with the Black vote. They need the Latina vote. So with them already planning to go after all these other groups, they're telling us they don't need our vote to win. Is that true, Marlon? Do they not need the Black vote to win?
Of course they need the Black vote to win. But the Black vote is not a swing vote. See, that's one of the misconceptions that we have. If 90% of us vote for the Democratic president, then that's not a swing vote. Okay, if we consistently vote for the same party, that's not a swing vote. A swing vote is a person who will vote for either party, or a person who is likely to vote for Republicans and Democrats. Now, in my opinion, an independent voter is a voter that will create deadlock in Congress. Okay, during the days of Bill Clinton and prior to, when we like to talk about, and you like to use the term, old creepy Joe Biden. Joe Biden was a moderate, meaning that he would compromise with Republicans. Those days are over. There is no compromise. Okay, on significant legislation. The only thing that they'll compromise on is naming a post office or putting somebody on a stamp or something like that. But here's what you do. Here's what independent voters do. If we're in an environment with no compromise, right, And what you do is you create a division where you have a slim margin because you are putting, potentially putting candidates, Republican candidates in office and Democratic candidates in office who are going to be at odds at each other because the party leadership will demand that they comply. See, that's, if you have a good political education, then you will understand that the leadership has many means at its disposal that will make even an ethical person comply. Okay, and I'd like to use Mike Turner, who was the mayor of Dayton. And I saw that man, I've observed him, and I saw the kind of relationship he had with one of our great Black City Council members here, Bootsy Neal. I saw the respect that he had for that woman and the way he treated her, and that elevated him, at least from my perspective. Okay, but now I see some of the things he's doing in Congress, and he's a long-term congressperson. I see some of the things he's doing now, and I'm thinking to myself, that isn't his nature to respond like that. And really the truth of the matter is that he's forced to comply with people like Mitch McConnell, who is Strom Thurmond's protege. He took over as majority leader after Strom Thurmond, who we all know, for those of us that know our history, was a segregationist governor and presidential candidate from the state of South Carolina. So those are some of the things we have to include in our calculus. So if you're an independent voter, what you are doing is helping to create gridlock in the Congress. What we need in order to pass legislation is there needs to be a significant margin in order to pass legislation either through the House or through the Senate. So, because the days of compromise are over, there is no compromise.
Okay. I had to come over to Facebook to try to see more of these comments and questions. Hold on. I don't even know if this is any better than what was happening over in the Be Live app. Family, just bear with me. I'm coming. This is crazy. Okay. Danny Arnold says, we are forcing our hand with down ballot. Marlon is telling you to concede to power for what? To survive? Hold on.
I don't think he heard my argument about the president's veto power. Okay? We are not, let me give you this, and this is from a sample of 1,500 Black, white, and Hispanic people. There was a question about support for reparations. And 75% of the Black people supported reparation. Okay? But of that sample, only 29% supported reparations. So out of 100 people, only 29 support reparations. So keep in mind that we are in a representative government. And these people that we send to Congress represent the interest of the people. So if only 29% of the people favor reparations and their representatives, or excuse me, do not, well, 29% of the populace favors reparations, and the support is not there for Congress to pass a reparations bill. Now, we need to look at this mathematically. And the only way I can see reparations happening is if we over leverage. our representation in the House of Representatives. What this means, we get behind Friends of ADOS PAC. We contribute monetarily at the local level, at the state level, and at the federal level. This is the only appropriate strategy that I can think of. It's really no different than what Emily's List does, what the Tea Party did. They basically did the same thing, and in other words, they were more active in government, okay, via contributions, via finding candidates and grooming them for office, being conversant with our political leaders at the local level, the state level, and at the federal level. In other words, they were more active, not inactive. And this idea of not supporting the most or allowing the opponent, the most powerful person on the chessboard, to be put in a position and not owe us anything. See, even those presidents who race bait, when they get into office, they owe us something. Even the Republicans. Now, it may not be something that, many of us support, but I'll give you an example. Who's the Black Supreme Court justice?
Clarence Thomas.
Trying to think. Clarence Thomas. That was a Republican that put him in office. That was George Bush #1 that put him in office. Okay, now by and large, a lot of people, a lot of black folks may not like Clarence Thomas, but that was a black person that was put in office. Okay, and will serve a lifetime appointment. And I'm pretty sure, I haven't followed his voting record, so I'm not going to say what his voting record looks like. But I'm pretty sure that some black folks, at least probably the Republicans, thought that that was a great thing. Okay. Even with Bill Clinton, he put a black Secretary of State in the office. The audience may remember Ron Brown. Of course, he died in a plane crash. Condoleezza Rice was Secretary of State as well, put in by Republicans. So, yeah, they all race bait, but they owe us something. May not be significant, but they owe us something. I know that Bush 1 had more black cabinet appointees than Obama did. So the criticisms abound for Obama, but we have to keep in mind that he was trying to establish his legacy. Probably his greatest legacy will be the Obamacare, and people complain about that, but they don't understand how that whole system was supposed to work. Those 22 states that I told you about that are Republican controlled, well, guess what? They never accepted the mandate. And the whole idea behind Obamacare, which is a private insurance market, right? It was private, it wasn't public. It was to have more people covered so that, especially younger people, without younger people, Obamacare would not be able to gain the economies of scale it was looking for in order to drive down premiums. The young people don't get sick that much. So if you have them paying premiums, there's more money in the system in order to provide health care for those that need it. They didn't accept expanding Medicare. Many other states, and I can't remember, I know at least 22 states did not accept the Obamacare program and actually waived their participation in it. And then, of course, we know with Trump, the individual mandate, right, which pretty much was a law that said that everyone must have it, all adults must have health insurance. They did away with the individual mandate And then, of course, we never were able to get the economy of scale that we needed to see premiums down. And in large part, that had to do with, you know who that had to do with? That had to do with the Tea Party. Played a significant part in that, okay? Because really what these Republicans see, and that what we fail to realize, and I don't see any criticism coming from the ADOS movement on the Republican side. All I see is demonization of the Democrats. Now, I'm a baby boomer. Let me tell you what, I'm going to say Congress, but generally the Democrats did for me as an adult. I graduated high school, and what would be what most people would call a pretty smart student. I couldn't get a job. I was working at Burger King, and I was doing a lot of temporary jobs and things of that nature. I used to open up for Burger King in the morning. I had to be there 6 o'clock in the morning, and that wasn't something that I wanted to do all of my life. So I ended up going in the military, which I never wanted to go in the military, okay? But I got lucky. I went into the United States Navy as an electronics technician, and there was a program that my recruiter, who was white, by the way, who introduced me to, called the Broadened Opportunity for Officer Selection and Training Program. And it was a program that would allow me to become an officer, actually get a 4-year NROTC scholarship, leave the military, get a 4-year degree, and come back in as an officer. I applied for that program. I was accepted. I made it through. It was an intensive 9-month program you had to go through that was sort of like a prep school with the military component in it. And that is what I would call an affirmative action program. Okay? Allowed me to go to college free, allowed me to build my resume up by getting management experience in the United States Marine Corps. I switched over. And the same thing when I got out. When I got out, I had worked in the private sector a little while. It was hard going for me. I couldn't make the kind of money I was making in the military. And it was stressful. I was a little bit depressed. You know, I had children, things of that nature. And I got lucky, found out I had to come back home because it was rough for me living in Atlanta. So I had to come back home and start over. Made one phone call. The next thing you know, I was in the school system. That's a good place for Black folks to go, is in the field of education. You can become very successful there, and I see it all the time. I was teaching 9th grade, and then I got the opportunity. I found out that there was a program at my current employer where they would pay for me, allow me to become a professor and instructor, and would pay for my master's degree, which was the qualification that was needed to teach. That was all to become a professor, a full-time tenured professor. And I applied for that program. I was accepted, and that's where I am today. So without these, what I call opportunity programs, nothing was given to me because I had to make it through each of these programs. The first program I was in had a 50% attrition rate. So I was only 50% of the people made it through. Most of them dropped out and went back to the fleet. Same thing with the what they call the Grow Our Own program is what they call the program, and it still exists for those that are interested in that. Is that I had to go to a physics program, a master's program, and I had to complete. So nothing was given to me other than an opportunity. And I think one of the things that I'm not sure there are many opportunities like that for young people today. So I can see part of the frustration
exactly
we have with our young people is that they do not have the opportunities. But what I am submitting to you today, and I want to make sure that this gets across, is that we keep saying, we keep demonizing the Democratic Party when it is the Democratic Party who put these programs forth.
Okay. Let take a breath. They put these programs forth and they now largely benefit white women and immigrants. It was for us. It was for us. We don't get to take advantage of the very affirmative actions that made you as a boomer whole. It is left behind. Well, I border boomer, so I got some of those trinkets, but I'm feeling the pain and the frustration of younger Gen Xers. I'm feeling the pain and frustration of the millennials. We are racked with college debt while they give it away to Black immigrants, to Hispanics, Asians, Latinas, white women. We are racked with college debt and have to go drive Uber and do Instacart. Okay? So these very actions that were in place for your generation, this is where we have a huge divide. I understand job discrimination. I'm down here in Los Angeles. I have to speak Spanish for most of the corporate jobs I go out for, even if Spanish is not required. It's another form of discrimination. I'm down here where we have no social capital. All the Blacks in management at Wells Fargo were wiped off the board. They put Hispanics in all the banks. We are down from 15% to 6%. Okay? This is DEFCON 4. Now, I know we've got the PAC in place, but that's far off. We literally have to start over. Somebody was asking, what about our plan for the PAC? Had to start over. Yvette and Tone don't believe in a super PAC. They believe in donations. Okay? They don't believe that we have money to aggregate dollars to get this done on a local, state, and federal level. We disagree, so we had to go off and do our thing, and it's literally starting over. Okay? For those of you who are asking, what about our plan? We're trying to start from scratch. We had this thing figured out. We had the PAC in place last June. We came to conference, commissioned some heavy hitters all over the country. And then someone took an excerpt and blew shit out of proportion. And Yvette did a show and said it was her movement after telling us to go be the solution. And told us, as she asked for donations, that they don't have money to do a PAC. So here we are at DEFCON 4. So you guys may think whatever you want to think about Marlon being on here today. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to figure it out for our people. I'm trying not to be emotional. I'm trying to give another perspective so we don't harm ourselves in this election cycle. I want to understand. Marlon, I'm trying to tell you that we feel out of time. We don't have a CBC that's working for us. We don't have a government. We don't have a Democratic Party that's working for us. I feel like the Democratic Party is moving further and further and further right of everything I believe in. I don't understand why we are continuing to do this strategy. And I know we're too far off from replacing Congress right now, having to start over. And yet we're dying disproportionately from the COVID. We are in a really bad way right now, and it feels...
I understand that frustration, okay? But I have this saying that I've sort of acquired just by being a military person. I'll tell you, one of the things that I love about the military is that I learned a lot. Now, it was tough for me in the military. It's very, at least for me, being the type of person that I am, I was confronted with a lot of racism. Okay? But I would never take that back. That experience sharpened me. One of the things I learned there is to always focus on the mission. Okay? Personality means nothing. Many of us, I see, we get tied up in personality. Even in this ADOS movement, there was a lot of glorifying personality. I'm not about personality. I've never been a person that is in the celebrity and thinks that the mission. Now, this is what the military forced into me. The mission is what's always important. Okay? So to be honest with you, and this could be a fault, could be conceived, viewed as a fault on my part, is that I'm focused more on the mission and less focused on trying to appease people's emotions, things of this nature. Some people may take that wrong, but that's what was bred into me in the military. So here's something else that I learned in the military that we could utilize as a people to move us forward. When you are frustrated and angry and tired and hungry, I want you to understand that we should always be on the attack. That was one of the things we learned in the military with the training that we went through. We used to do the same thing over and over, and many of us would wonder why we're doing the same thing over and over. And we get pissed off, right? But then when we thought about it, if you're in combat, the enemy's not going to say, oh, it's nighttime, time to go to bed. The enemy's not going to care that it's a holiday. The enemy's going to want to stop you from getting your mail. In other words, they're going to want to cut off your communication. They're going to want to cut off your supplies so that you can't eat. When nighttime time comes, they're going to attack. So then it made sense to me. We trained over and over and did the same thing over so that when those situations came up, the last thing we wanted to do was think. We wanted to react. Okay, so what I get from that is that when you are tired and frustrated, like many of us are now, you know what we do? We attack. Attack, attack, attack. We're always on the attack. Okay? And disengaging from the political process, which is really a form of chess, it is a power relationship, right? We have to understand that politics is, at least in my mind, I conceive of politics as a power relationship. And to the extent that we disengage in this power relationship is to the extent that we remain on the bottom and be frustrated. Okay, so we have to attack, and we have to always be on the attack. The attack makes sense to me, but just like the CBC wanted to proceed with pushing the president to put initiatives in place for their constituents, we have to have the consent of the people. Okay, they had to have the consent of the people. They didn't have the consent of the people, so they weren't able to press the president. Okay, the same is true with our PAC. In order for our PAC to be successful, we have to have the consent of the people. In other words, we have to win the hearts and minds of the people. And the people like us have to always be on the attack. We have to be mission oriented. And if the mission is reparation, if the mission is a black agenda, the only way that you can achieve that is become a more powerful piece on the chessboard. In my opinion, the only way I can see that happening is not by disengaging in the political process, but by becoming more engaged in the political process. And what that means is that we overrepresent ourselves in the House of Representatives. General Colin Powell had a doctrine, which is they attributed to him, but it really wasn't his doctrine. It's a long-term standing military doctrine where you overwhelm your enemy with overwhelming force. Okay? So I use that here to say that we can overwhelm our political opponents by overrepresenting ourselves in the House of Representatives. We could shut the whole Congress down because, again, that's if we vote as a bloc. This is only going to work if we're able to put people in Congress that will vote as a bloc and will push this issue of a black agenda, will push this issue to make the case for reparations. Because in order to pass some legislation like that, we have to put forth a case to the American public, both black and white, that reparations is important and reparations is justified. Sitting on the sidelines with numbers that really don't amount to much, which is the present case, isn't going to do us any good as a strategy. The only legitimate strategy that I can think of is becoming a more powerful piece on the chessboard, and what that means is gaining a numerical advantage. 25%, in my opinion, would be a significant advantage for black people if we were to achieve that in the House of Representatives.
Okay, let me address some of my audience. Shamira Atkins says that, I'm voting for the candidate that best supports my interests. Right now, the biggest problem we are facing is immigration. So one thing Trump is doing is fighting against immigration. That is financial support for ADOS. Right now, Democrats are fighting, advancing all buffer class groups over ADOS. Jamie Burton Orr says that she prefers Trump over Biden. What's your response?
Well, another thing that I've noticed within, and this is not, I don't want to generalize and say this is just the black community. This is really the American populace in general, is that many of us only look at the surface. We don't really look deep into these particular issues. Now, what I've heard in terms of, I'm going to take unemployment for example. Blacks have had the lowest unemployment, or did have, prior to this COVID, had the lowest unemployment we have seen in years. Okay? Even now, black unemployment, with all of the layoffs, at least according to the last reports, is at about 16%. Okay? For Hispanics, it's up at about 18%. So I'm amazed that black unemployment is lower than Hispanic unemployment. And normally, when we even compare that to whites, what we find out there is that black unemployment has always been double that of white unemployment. So we talk about the low unemployment, but looking at an unemployment number by itself is really meaningless until we compare it to something, to some other number. And in this case, I'm talking about across racial or ethnic lines. If we go back to 1967, which I believe is when the Department of Labor started looking at unemployment numbers, we will find out that it's generally been the case that black unemployment has always been double, and it's sometimes higher than white unemployment. So to me, it's a surface level discussion that we are having when we are talking about black unemployment, but we are not comparing it to some other measure of employment along the lines of race or ethnicity. In this case, we're always looking at the gaps between blacks and white. Okay, black, if we're looking in terms of the jobs that Mexicans in particular would have, and I know that there are somewhere about 10 million or so Hispanic people, Mexicans in particular, that are not citizens in the United States. There's a big deal about, and I know Joe Biden has a plan to give them a pathway to citizenship. I think that what we fail to realize is that Democrats are the weaker of the two parties, okay? And what that means is that they must seek allies that the Republicans, at least at this point, do not have to seek. In other words, they've been the dominant force in the federal government, in state government, and they don't have the allies that the Democrats have. So not only are we in a fight for our lives, but white Democrats are in a fight for their lives too, and we seem to dismiss that because we're only thinking about us as a singular constituency, okay? And that's where the problem arises. These are Mexicans, for the most part, are not taking the jobs. Well, as a whole, now I know in places like where you live at, that's going to be a different story.
Very.
Because if that's a different story, but when you go across the country, you don't see these types of things in the heartland and things that where Hispanics are taking a lot of jobs from black people, and in particular, if they are getting jobs, it's not the jobs that black folks want, because we want the same jobs that white folks have. So, you know, that's a disingenuous conversation as well when we talk about Hispanics as a whole taking jobs from black folks. Well, if that's the case, then why is our unemployment lower than their unemployment? So
because of gig jobs. Because of gig jobs. Our jobs, because of job discrimination, we can have all the education in the world and still can't, not only can we not get the jobs, once you get the job, you're not earning the same as your white counterpart. Okay? So I'm saying the unemployment numbers are boasting what they are because under Obama, gig jobs came into play. And so you got people with college degrees driving Uber and Lyft for a living because they have no social capital in hiring practices. Affirmative action is not protecting them. They can't show up to interviews. I've been on a bazillion of them. I've got experience up the wazoo and I'm college educated. And yet, thankfully, I have a predominantly black-owned company that has hired me to do what I currently do, and I've still not recouped my $120K salary that I earned at Wells Fargo, who, oh, by the way, was robbing their customers and giving low-key initiatives to their employees to rob the customers, and turned around, replaced all of the black folks that could blow the whistle with Hispanics and immigrants, and ultimately they fired 5,500 employees. And the CFO, John Stumpf, got a $148 million parachute. If you don't believe me, watch Dirty Money, Wells Fargo episode. You'll see who's being interviewed, and it's not us. My point is this: unemployment numbers being good for us is a farce if we cannot make comparable to our white counterparts in the country our ancestors built with their lives. It matters not if we can't make money and buy homes and not be the first to lose everything when these folks set the economy up for a recession and for a money grab. Billionaires are getting richer right now because they had money to begin with. They practice capitalism to oppress us, and then socialism when they make bad decisions in business. You know, corporate welfare. And that's both sides agreeing to this bull. Democrats are signing off on this nonsense just like Republicans. They're always guilty. Nancy Pelosi and a whole lot of them are guilty of this nonsense at the expense of the people. They leave the people to eat dirt. Well, so how do you explain to me
society, right?
What?
We live in a capitalist society.
No,
right?
we live in a capitalistic society when it serves white elitist capital. But they certainly become welfare queens and kings when they upset the economy, upset the stocks, and take all the risk, and now they need a bailout to the tune of over 20 trillion prior to COVID. It's probably greater than that now. And they throw us these peanuts while folks can't even reach people on the unemployment numbers. They can't even get their unemployment. They can't get the little federal stimulus. And Pelosi puts out an 1,800-page stimulus. Yeah, 1,800 pages that predominantly bail out white folks and white money. Insurance companies, what do they need with that? What do the insurance companies need with money and a stimulus? All these big giants, while the smaller companies are failing. And if they're failing, then the black companies, what little few we have, can't survive this nonsense.
Okay, let's look at what you just said. And this is where what I was referring to earlier is that we're only looking at the surface. Now, people that follow politics know that Republicans are pro-business, more pro-business in terms of deregulation and providing supports for business. That's what I mean by the Democrats are pro-business too, but they like to regulate business, whereas opposed to not Democrats, but Republicans, they don't like to put regulations on businesses.
Neither did Obama. Neither did Obama when he bailed out the businesses.
You're looking, that is not true. He put a whole lot of regulations on place. And what did Trump do when he came in office? He took all of those regulations off. He did it by himself. He didn't need Congress to do that. So that's what I mean by looking at the surface. We're not looking deeply at what is happening. Now, you just sit up here and said that the Democratic House, the Democrats are the only ones who can put a spending bill forth. The House of Representatives, which is controlled by Democrats, controls the purse. The last stimulus bill, at least on the surface, was what, 2.2 trillion? Somewhere around there?
No.
It was 3 trillion.
It was 6 trillion. 2 trillion to the people and 4 trillion to the businesses. And black folks didn't get none of that.
Okay, but you're just proving my point. Okay, the Republicans are the ones that put that opportunity for the additional 4 trillion to go in there for the businesses. The Democrats were against that. Okay, what the Democrats are doing now and what they've always done, the Democrats have always been for common people. Okay, that's what that word generally refers to, the common people, the majority. Okay, the Republicans support corporations and wealthy people. That is a fact. There is no, at least having a conversation with people if you have a conversation with people that are conversant on that, they will tell you that the Republicans favor supporting corporations and wealthy folks. Therefore, they lower taxes. They were able to do it.
You mean the Republicans?
They're taking off regulations. It was the Republicans who did that. The Democrats, by and large, did not favor that, okay? It is the Republicans right now who are dismantling all the regulations that Obama put in place to curb the recession. That is a fact. There is no argument on that. If you hear people talking about that, they're saying anything other than that, they're just probably taking the talking points that they're hearing from people who are not conversant in those particular issues. So let me get back to your question though. You're talking about the Democrats putting forth another stimulus, okay? Putting money into the economy. Why has Donald Trump said that he's going to veto the bill if the bill is for corporations? It doesn't make any sense.
If the bill is for the corporations.
That's what you just said. You just said that this $3 trillion stimulus was for corporations, correct? Yes.
But that it doesn't really serve the people.
But if it doesn't serve the people, that means it serves someone else.
It serves corporate. It serves big money interest.
Okay, so if it serves big money interest, why would Trump, prior to even seeing the bill, why would he go on public TV and say he's going to veto it?
Because he don't make sense. First of all, let's start there. Secondly, the Democrats have their money interest and the Republicans have their money interest. Okay, they're not the same. And furthermore, none of them have an interest in the people for real. If you're talking about 1,200 here or there, and the majority of black folks still ain't got a check. Still can't reach nobody for unemployment. So I'm saying they all got their interest. He just might not like the interest that Pelosi want to put the money into.
Okay, so if that's the case, if what you just said is true, then why is it that you have many workers that don't want to go back to work?
Because they're making more on unemployment. And to my point, gig jobs replaced real money jobs, replaced manufacturing jobs, the kind we grew up with, the kind that made black folks whole, the kind that would enable them to buy a house. They're not making $25 an hour out here driving Uber. My girlfriend told me that at the end of the year, she netted $4,000 driving Uber. $4,000. So don't boast to me about the unemployment numbers going down under Obama when those jobs were replaced by gig jobs where folks are living less than paycheck to paycheck. They don't have the jobs that we once did in manufacturing, NCR, National Cash Register, all of these jobs that they can make more than a living wage during your era. During your era.
You're making an emotional
okay, I'm not making an emotional argument. I'm living it.
You're making an emotional argument. What you just set up here and said is that the Democrats are no better than the Republicans. They support big business.
How are they better?
And then you turn around and admit it that evidently the American worker doesn't want to go back to work because they are enjoying that stimulus money, i.e., that extra $600 per week or per month of extended unemployment benefit that the Republican from the former slave state, Lindsey Graham, said, hey, that's too much money for these people. What people do you think he was talking about?
You are missing the entire point. You are missing my entire point. It is a damn crying shame that we need COVID for an extra $600 to come up in this country that our ancestors built with their lives. That is criminal. To capitalize off of a COVID that we're dying disproportionately from, that folks can't make that extra market because they're now reduced to get jobs that help bolster up unemployment numbers. That is crazy. That is crazy.
Where did which party did that $600 come from?
The Democrats.
Okay.
But what party is fighting against $15 an hour, which is still not a livable wage in this country? Which party is fighting against that? The Democrats.
The Republicans.
Are you kidding me?
No, you're misinformed. You're misinformed.
I am not. I've seen them on the debate stage fighting.
Whoever you are getting that information from, they are totally misinformed.
Okay, so then
here's what you do.
What?
Here's what you do. Have your audience, you included, go to search for the Democratic platform. Do an internet search for the Democratic platform. Read through it. Take a little set aside a little bit of time to read through it in detail, and then I want you to go to the Republican platform and look at their platform, and you will see that the Democratic platform is in concert with what their party is about. Their party is about supporting the common man. There's no dispute about this. All of the legislation is there for you to go and see. In detail, that this party has always been for the common man. That's what democracy means. That is the whole definition of it. People.
Okay, listen.
It is people.
Okay.
Look at the platform. No. Compare the platforms and make a judgment for yourself which one of these platforms is more in line with my values and is more in line with helping me, my family, and society as a whole. Go look at that.
Marlon, let me help you. That's beautiful in theory. I'm talking about what they're practicing. I'm saying we are literally at the place where we have practically no more unions, and Bernie Sanders has been fighting for $15 an hour since the last election cycle. I don't see any of these other candidates. They might be trickling to get on board now, but Bernie made that popular at a time that Hillary was against it. Okay? Goldwater girl, Hillary. Let me remind you.
Look at the Democratic Party platform.
Okay, let me go back to I will do that, but we are like, oh my God.
Go to governmenttrack.gov and look at the legislation, which is the bills which have been introduced by members of the House, by members of the Senate. You can look at all of the legislation and make the determination for yourself which legislation is more for the people or more for the corporations. You can make that determination by yourself. As a matter of fact, as the cover page on my profile, it has the left and the right. You can see the values, what they stand for. It says, I'm looking at it right now,
okay.
As a matter of fact.
Let me let the audience.
You know what it says? The world, here's what society and culture, community based on ethics. Those are standards, right? The world can be improved. Bring in the new. Utopianism. What does it say under that? Inclusive, multicultural, evolving. Well, here's what it says up under the Republicans. The same thing, society and culture. Exclusive, established, nationalistic, protect the good things about the world. Preservation. What do you think they are preserving? They are preserving their tradition. Okay, community based on morals. Well, everybody's morals are different. Standards are things, ethics has to do with all of us, agree to. Okay, look at Donald Trump's morals. He has none.
Okay.
He has none. Let me finish. Let me say this now.
I'm gonna stop hollering. I promise you I'm gonna stop hollering. This stuff just makes me passionate. We gotta let the audience weigh in. They've got some great questions for you, Marlon.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Danny says you need to look up the job quality index. It's horrible for ADOS. Uber, Grubhub, Instacart are not jobs. Shamira Atkins says, no, sir, Marlon, that is a myth. Blacks do want to work. Look at our Black farmers who gave highly affected because of Hispanic immigration. Okay. Danny says, we don't want the gig jobs. We want reparations. Bleep a job. I know what I am owed now. Let them work because we're finna run our own business. Okay, so basically, let me go up. Jamie had said something pretty powerful. Family, it's a lot of comments. Just, I beg your patience. This is an important show. And forgive me, I'm going to try not to scream. I'm not screaming at Marlon. I'm screaming at our conditions, our situation. Trey, Marlon does know quite a bit, and that's why he's on the show. Anybody I bring on this show is very informed, and they have a different lens that they see things through. But he knows what he's talking about, and I'm just trying to bridge this divide because none of this works until we start to move as a block. As for donations, I'm not asking for donations, and I don't disparage Tone and Yvette for donations. My argument with what they did to disrupt the PAC is that we can't have money to give to you constantly, of which I was contributing monthly. We can't have money for going to the conferences, staying in hotels, eating fancy meals, partying and back. We can't have money for the most recent Jordans and the most recent up-to-date iPhones. I think in Atlanta during COVID, they had lines out the door for the newest pair of Jordans or something ridiculous during COVID. We can't have money to dress as well as we do, to do our hair and nails, and not have money for politics. Every other group has a super PAC, and they are fighting for their own interest. So to me, you can't say we've got money to do this and not money to do this. This is the most important of it all. And if we can do all of what we do, stop telling me we don't have money for the PAC. Tell me you don't have the interest. Tell me you don't have the understanding. Tell me you don't have the will. But do you understand that none of this gets done being on YouTube? None of it gets done until we pay for our politics. None of it. If we don't do as Marlon has brilliantly put together and replace this Congress, the current CBC will not get on board to even study. We don't even have all the votes from the CBC to even study something that don't need studying. So go make your money, but stop telling me, people, that we don't have money to do politics. Because if we continue to buy in that lie, we will continue to be the legs of the table that everybody else eats from. I've got money to do ADOS movement work. I've got money to get behind the COVID-19 relief. I've got money for my super PAC. And so tell me something other than the fact that we don't have money, because that is a lie. We pay for what matters. And all the other groups are being heard, and they're getting special consideration in this upcoming stimulus in the multi-millions because they believe in putting money in politics.
Let's talk about the super PAC.
Go ahead.
Let's talk about the super PAC. Okay, I've already mentioned Emily's list. They're a super PAC. What are they for? They're about finding women and grooming women to run for office. What is their primary focus? Putting pro-choice women into office at the local, state, and national level. We They are one of our models. Our vision is the United States of America, where true equality and equity exists for American descendants of slavery. What is our purpose? On behalf of ADOS, we exist to reclaim a debt that is owed, to eliminate political persecution, to support and defend democracy. What is democracy? What is our mission? We push equity-driven leaders into public office. That's at the local level, the county level, the state level, and the federal level. When you become a part of Friends of ADOS, you commit to $90 a year. That's $30 that goes to your local organization, $30 that goes to your state, and $30 that goes to the national. Those local organizations are responsible for finding, qualifying, training, and advocating for local politicians. And that $30 helps them to do that. And then over and above that, people are going to make contributions to these political organizations, which is what they are. Doesn't mean they don't do advocacy work. They can do all of that. That is determined by the leaders and the membership at that local level. At the state level, if you have 2 chapters within your state, you're then eligible to form a state federation. Okay, that state federation receives $30. They advocate and do all of the things that the local does for state representatives, for governors, secretaries of state, and people at that level, judges, all of that, they can advocate and support at the state level. And then, of course, there's the national level. We get $30 of that money, and we focus on the federal government, our senators, the president, vice president, and our House representatives. Okay? With that money, we are able to do what? We're able to advertise on their behalf. We're able to do it directly. If that's how you choose to do that, you can give money directly to a campaign, a candidate or his or her campaign, or you could do it independently. You could run ads that endorse a particular candidate, depending on the laws of the state in which you live. Now, your state, California, is pretty liberal. You could do direct contributions to the candidate, and you can do what are called independent expenditures, which means that you don't coordinate with that candidate or his or her political party. These are things that you totally do without communicating with them. Okay, and at the national level, we want to do ours independently. Okay, we want to be able to run ads on TV that support candidates or that oppose candidates and or ballot issues. That is what we are about. But we can't do this unless we win the hearts and minds of the people. Okay, some people are going to want to be members. They're going to want to do advocacy work. They're going to want to support campaigns. They're going to want to go down to their city council and voice their opinions as a block. Okay? But then there are also going to be people that don't want to be involved in that they're just going to want to contribute monetarily. And that's fine. So this allows us, through membership, to ensure that we can have a functioning political organization either at the local level, the state level, and then, of course, the national level. It makes more sense to guarantee that you can meet your fixed costs by membership and then be able to go above that through contributions from corporations, from individuals, from trade unions, whatever. We can get money at the national level from anybody, and there is no limit on the amount of money that we can collect. That's the beauty of it. That will allow us to become a force to be reckoned with. I'm trying to think of the Asian gentleman that was running for Congress. His campaign was able to raise over 900 million, if I'm not mistaken.
You're talking about Andrew Yang?
Andrew Yang, that's correct.
The Yang gang.
Now look, they're a smaller percentage of the population than we are, but they were able to raise a substantial amount of money. And I think that we can, what did I say? How much did I just say?
You said 900 million. I didn't know he raised that much.
Okay, yeah, that's okay.
Wow.
Either 90 million or 900 million. Don't quote me on that number because I'll mix some numbers up trying to go from memory. I'll mix some numbers up. But it was a significant amount of money. Now, I want you to imagine, or your audience to imagine, what happens if we are able to raise money on that level. What we could do in terms of ultimately achieving our ultimate goal, which is over-representation in the House of Representatives. Over-representation on city council, board of trustees, or whatever form of government you have. Putting more black legislators in the state houses, okay? And we don't have to have significant numbers of blacks to do this. One of the ways, generally we put black legislators in office, and in their districts, they only have 30%, only 30% of the people there that support them are black. So we can get white support in order to put black legislators in Congress, in the state houses, and things of this nature. We just have to do it smartly, and we have to have the hearts and the minds of the people. Without that, everything else falls apart.
I still see people saying we don't have the money. If we all gave $1, we'd have 36 million. Stop it. Let's see here. There's some other great comments here that I wanted to read. Where was Nigel Cook? He said something really good. Dang it. Okay, just a second. I wanted to get Nigel's comment in. I think Nigel was referring to how they are so willing to replace us with immigrants because they'll work for $10 an hour versus $25 an hour that's due to ADOS. And if you don't believe that Democrats have been complicit in us being on the bottom, then how do you explain that we hardly have any unions anymore and how we're not making the salaries we once did if they weren't somehow complicit and working in concert with the Republicans to farm our jobs out overseas, and to bring in as many illegal immigrants and immigrants at large to suppress the wages, which is what is happening here in California. How do you explain that if we're not?
Oh, it's easy. That's surface level thinking, like I was talking about earlier. That is those we live in a capitalistic society, right? That means we're private enterprise. And if you want to be competitive in a capitalistic society, you reduce your costs, right? Mm-hmm. Now, from a socialist standpoint or a communist standpoint, the way they phrase that is the exploitation of the means of production. That means the worker, you exploit them. You pay them as little as you can pay them. Now, let me show you why the history is important. I'm looking at my cover photo, and it says the left, and it's talking about government. And up under that, it has communism, labor, Democrats, and parties. Now, on the right, it has parties, Republican, conservative, and nationalist. Okay? So that labor that you're talking about, labor unions have, for the majority, is leftist. Okay? If you look all through European society, and really if we want to get a handle on this, if we want to understand the opposition against us, the best place to start is to look at history. And in particular, since Europeans are the majority, we have to look at European history and understand what happened there, because history is psychology. Okay, psychology is not only the mind, but psychology is also human behavior. So if we want to understand these behaviors, we have to go look at history, because history is psychology. Let me say this part about it. Trade, fair trade. Look what it says here. Look at this. Support the workers. Okay? Goal, personal freedom, focus, society. Here's the right side, the Republican. Focus, individual, goal, economic freedom. Ooh, what does this say right here? Support employers. Look at that right there. Support employers. What does it say on the left side? Support the workers. So anyone who makes that, some of the arguments or drawing conclusions that I've heard here today really do not understand economics or politics. Okay? It's as clear as day. You go look at the history. All of this is there. It's not hidden. All we have to do is go find it. And another thing I want to say is that I'm a professor. Okay? I'm an academician. And one of the things I've learned there is that never to be impressed by numbers, or what the layman likes to call data. Okay? Data, we have to question how that, the context of that data when people give statistics. Statistics do not explain anything. When you give me an unemployment number, I'm not impressed by that, because it doesn't explain how that came to be. And then ultimately for the academician, what is important, and we hear these terms, and this is why lay people get confused, the data is less important, or should I say is, at least in my opinion, now this is my opinion, the data is only as relevant as the methodology or the reasoning that went into collecting the data. For what purpose was the data collected? What is its range of validity? In other words, where does the data fall apart and not have meaning anymore? See, these are the questions that a deep thinker would ask and a surface thinker would not. We look at the media. One of the things I learned in grad school is the first day of our methods class was to never gather data from the media. That was the first day of class. Because the data that they look at is over a short time period, right? In other words, you look at a journalist who, for the most part, is reporting what someone else is saying, and what? They have to get that article out, what, in a couple of hours to get it to press, or what have you? Well, researchers, they embed themselves, and the data that they collect occurs over months or years. They immerse themselves in the data. They look at all perspectives. They don't look at one perspective. They look at both sides of it. Sometimes they'll look at more than one perspective. There are many perspectives in which to observe, in this case, humans and their interaction. So one of the mistakes that the layperson makes, and even the educated person for that matter, is that we look at things on a surface level and we never go deeper, because there's a lot of research, and more importantly, you have to know how to break down data. You have to know to put data together in order to draw the proper conclusions from that. So we make mistakes. I wanted to say this, though. I'm still looking at my cover, and up under adults, watch this. These are the professions that conservatives or the right will go into. Watch this. Police, military, stockbroker, business, judge. What are the conservatives focusing on now? Conservative judges. Who are these people out there that are beating black folks in the street but the police? Here's what it says up under the left of the liberals. Teacher, scientist, Hey, here's me, professor, architect, media. The left, focus on urban. What is the right? What do they say? Oh, there it is, rural. So everything is there. What are the beliefs? Theistic. Religion, up under religion, it says theistic, organized, conventional, rights. Others must not interfere. Criminals, choose to be criminals. These are their beliefs now. Homeless, no work ethic, no sense of shame. Society, watch this now. Survival of the fittest. That's the right side. The beliefs of the left side, religion, scientific, non-organized, unconventional. Rights, others must observe. Criminals, social and economic victims. Homeless, downtrodden, victims of the system, society. One for all and one for all and all for one. Equality is the level playing field. Freedom is freedom from power abuse and inequality, but which is best? Equality is what they say. Equality, this is the right side. Equality is opportunity. Freedom is the chance to achieve or fall, but which is best? They say freedom. And that's what you hear Republicans pushing is freedom. Why is that important to them? Go ahead. I know I'm talking a lot.
You are, Lord have mercy. But I really adore you. Thank you so much for people. Marlon and I, please don't think I'm yelling at him. I sometimes can cry when I get emotional, but I'm not crying. Thank you for your concern. Marlon and I do this, and then we find the love and we dial it back. We're very passionate about our perspectives, and he's not a troll. He's not an agent. All these things I'm seeing in the comments. He is a really wonderful, legitimate, beautiful brother that is trying to help us make an informed decision about our vote. I thank you guys for being on this live, and I thank you for hanging in as long as you have. I thank you for your comments. I'm going through and I'm trying to pick the ones that pop out at me so he can pointedly address some of these very, very good concerns. But please continue to chat among yourselves. It's very exciting to see so many people active. Thank you for your participation and love for ADOS. Shamira said, Marlon, the reason why Hispanic unemployment is low is because some of them cannot work because Trump chose American workers over immigrants. Many of the Hispanics are here illegally and have TIN to work. She meant to say Hispanic unemployment is high, okay? Because she believes that Trump is looking out for American workers when he denies the immigrants. What do you say to that?
Well, there's a couple of points. Trump is a capitalist. Let me tell you something that I know about capitalists. It's long established, okay? Capitalism has to have new markets to exploit. If there are no new markets to exploit, capitalism ceases to work, okay? These immigrants that everyone is up in arms about are new markets. These corporations, many of them would fail, okay, if they weren't for immigrants. Look at agriculture. Who do you think that's out there doing those jobs? It certainly isn't black folks. Okay, so your food. As a matter of fact, when you go to the grocery stores now, what do you normally see? You see a lot of empty shelves, don't you? Mm-hmm. That we are facing a food shortage because people are not in that sector are not working. Okay, so you're seeing that showing up on the shelves. Okay, so I can guarantee you, this is a capitalist. The capitalists like immigration because it allows them to exploit labor. What is a capitalist but one who exploits labor? Okay? One of the reasons that we maintain this powerful military is that we don't want other countries to control their natural resources. So we hijack them first through bribes, offering them, trinkets and things of this nature. And if that doesn't work, we bring in the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, to basically subjugate them financially and put all of these austerity measures in place. And if that doesn't work, you know what we do? We send in the United States military to crush them. That's what we do. We see this happening in Venezuela right now. We see this happening in countries all over the world where when they choose to exert their own independence and control their own resources, the United States steps in and basically dominates 5% of the world population, but we control 30% of the world's economy. And when you look at America, Europe, Middle East, and Asia, you know how much of the world's economy we're talking about? We're talking about 60% of the world's economy. Okay? You have to understand capitalism in order to understand immigration. This is happening not only in the United States, it's happening all over Europe. Okay? What do you think BritX was about?
Brexit.
Did you not? Yes, Brexit. What do you think that was about? That was about immigration as well. As well. Okay? The UK in the 60s fought to get into the European Union. Oh, they just had to get into the European Union. They finally got in. But see, this is collectivism at its best. This is the cooperation of nations. It's non-nationalistic. It's integrated, and it's what they call, what the conservatives like to call is globalism. Everybody being friendly and cooperative. Egalitarianism. Equality. Right? Working as a team. I just read that off of my cover. But your Europeans said, oh, no, they're sending in they aren't blacks, but they're sending in what their equivalent to black people. You have Poles, you have Slavs, you have Gypsies. All of these folks coming across the borders, all of these European Union countries, right, doing the same thing that the Mexicans and the Central Americans are doing. They're coming up here to find work. Well, what happens when you start to ease those restrictions on immigration? Well, the natives, they get pissed off. Europeans, well, I'm not going to say just Europeans. This may be a natural phenomenon. I'm not sure. But the natives, and the Europeans especially, the conservative ones, the ones who want to conserve what? And see, that's the question we never ask, is what are they trying to serve? I'm going to tell you what they conserve in no uncertain terms. They're trying to conserve their tradition. They're trying to conserve their culture. They don't care about anyone else's culture. That's what nationalism is about. They're also trying to conserve the natural, what they call the natural hierarchy. Okay? No, aristocracy is a natural right to them. In order for us to understand what's going on, we must first understand history, because history is what? History is psychology. History is behavior. And to the extent that we don't understand that is to the extent that we're going to be seeing what's going on, but we're not going to know what's going on. And that's what I see in our community that disturbs me most, is that we have been here for the longest. We see what's going on, but have no clue what's going on because of the surface level thinking and the self-interest that I'm seeing creeping up. Trust me, if we allow these nationalists to have their way, we're going to go back to a pre-World War I environment, and where aristocracy was the law of the land. You had some monarch, right? And that's been the argument that Bill Barr and Trump and all of them making. I'm a king. You hear Trump repeating what Bill Barr is saying. I'm a king. I can do anything I want to. No, you can't. See, that is a conservative idea, because what? When you look at Europe, what did you see? You saw kings and queens. That is the way their society was set up. What do you see? Many of us are renters, right?
Yes.
And we fail to understand that you are a landlord and a what? A tenant. You are a lord, landlord. What do you think the nobles were in Europe? They were called lords, right? You
Yes.
look at their religion, which they put in place, which they didn't even believe in. What was Jesus called? He was called Lord and Master. That is their tradition that they are promoting. And we fail to see that. We're conservative too, but we have our own tradition, right? If you're going to conserve something, conserve your own tradition. Don't conserve someone else's tradition. That doesn't make any damn sense. We're at a point now in our community where, because we don't know history, because of the way that we have been treated, we are in a state now where we have amnesia. We have forgotten our past, right? And that's really a problem what I'm seeing with the young people. When a person forgets their past, they have a condition called amnesia. Amnesia is a mental disease that requires what? It requires therapy. Many of us require therapy because we have forgotten our own traditions, we have forgotten our past, and we definitely don't pay attention to the history of the people that would oppress us.
You say, let me thank you for that. You talk about Trump being Republican as to why he's trying to, basically stave off immigration. But that, I guess I'm a little confused because the Democrats are for immigration. And yet it hurts the American worker. It hurts the salaries, especially hurts the salaries. So what makes the Democrats any less capitalistic than the Republicans? I'm trying to get a handle on the point you made earlier. About
they are capitalists. They are capitalists because capitalism is really nothing more than an extension. It is an outgrowth of feudalism. Okay,
so
when you look at the feudal system, it was based on land. Okay, the king gave out land to people that would provide service for them, normally military people. This is why the military is important to conservatives, because it is part of their history. When you look at that feudal system, what do you find in the feudal system? You find knights, you find knighthood, you find chivalry, you find romanticism. Okay? You are looking at their history and not understanding what you are seeing.
Okay, stop right there, because I think you went off into the woods somewhere. That's not my point. What Shamira was saying is that Trump, the unemployment figures are high for immigrants because Trump is protecting American workers. What I'm saying...
No, the unemployment figures are high because of COVID. Okay? That's nothing to do with the economy and everything to do with the government shutting down the economy.
No, you were speaking earlier comparatively that our unemployment figures are lower than that of the Hispanic. Okay? You said earlier, even during COVID, that our unemployment numbers are lower. And I would venture to say it's because we're mostly essential workers and we have to continue to go to work. So I'm not talking about during the COVID. I'm saying that Shamira mentioned that unemployment is higher for Hispanics because Donald Trump is protecting the interests of the American workers, wherein the Democrats want to open the borders and they're all for immigration. Aren't they? What you just described about the Republicans, interested in capitalism to the point of suppressing wages and for the American workers. Aren't the Democrats complicit in that? You claim that they're for the workers, but how can they be for the workers and and rise so hard for the immigrants if immigrant workers suppress the wages of American workers and put us out of jobs? It feels off to me that they can be for workers and for immigration at the same time.
They can be for, let me make sure because you said a lot there. So well, let me say this. I was looking at the data recently for unemployment and was shocked to see that Black unemployment was lower than Hispanic, because normally it's the opposite. Okay, so again, I can look at data, but I can't really, but data doesn't explain anything. I can guess about why Black unemployment is less than Hispanic, but it would be just that. It would be a guess, and actually it would be non-academic to guess about why that unemployment for Blacks is lower than that of Hispanics.
Okay. Let's just.
Me, I can't answer that one. I'm just as shocked as anyone else about that, but I can tell you this for sure, because I'm not the only one saying it. If the truth be told, what you are here, when you hear me talk, you're really hearing me editorialize on what people that are smarter than me are saying. Okay, so what I think, and I'm speaking in terms of my post, and even what I'm saying here, what a lot of people don't see is that there's a lot of reading that goes into what I'm saying. Okay, my opinions, at least from my standpoint, my opinions don't mean anything unless I can substantiate them with how things actually work. Okay, I'm not going to be one of those persons, because it would put me in a bad light being a professor and an academician if I'm saying things I can't support. Everything that I've said here today, I can support by directing you to articles, research papers in particular, that, when I make a post, of course, I'm not providing a bibliography of all of that, because that's something that we normally don't do on Facebook. We don't provide bibliographies and things of that nature. But in terms of, I wanted to get back to your question in terms of what Democrats are doing. I just read from my cover photo is that they act to support the worker. That is their philosophy.
Okay.
Go out and look it up.
No, I'm not even arguing that, Marlon. I'm not even arguing that. What I am arguing is that the Democrats can't both be for capitalism and the worker, because their capitalism includes immigrants that rob Americans of their jobs and suppress the salaries. And it's not just, the people that work in the orange groves. I've seen it happen on a professional level out here with Wells Fargo Bank. They replace all of the Blacks. Listen, they replace all the Blacks with the Hispanic workers, and they suppressed those wages and got those immigrants to rob the customers and had to terminate 5,500 people, even though they were directly responsible from the top of signaling that they needed those workers to rob the customers to increase the shares for the shareholder. So how in the world can Democrats be for the worker? This is why I'm saying that in theory, it's one thing. In practice, it is showing up as something altogether different. So you can read all you want about what the Republicans are supposed to stand for, what the Democrats are supposed to stand for. I'm not just making stuff up. I've experienced this time and time again down here in Southern California, where we are now from 15% down to 6 or 9%, and we are 80% on Skid Row. And the Hispanics are 51%. They own practically all the homes, and they have a lot of government positions, and they also have a lot of hiring positions, and they're doing far better than the American descendant of chattel slavery here in Southern California. Now, you don't feel like that hurts anybody but us on the border states. I'm saying if these Democrats get into office and they open up these borders the way they're intending, that is going to be all over the country. You're going to be seeing them over here having babies like popcorn and replacing more American descendants of chattel slavery in places more than just the border states. So can you tell me, how are they different? You can't be a capitalist and be for the worker at the same time. Because capitalists, as you've already said, they are thinking about their bottom line. It's not about the workers and their expense. And I'm telling you that the Republicans are anti-immigration and the Democrats are. So make it make sense, please.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you, okay?
I don't believe you, but it's okay. You can laugh at me. I don't care.
Here's what the professor just heard. I've heard you provide anecdotal information.
Oh,
okay?
my God.
Now, I didn't hear you say, I want you to name one congressperson, right, that is out there interviewing people in California. Do you know any?
You are missing.
I'm going to answer that for you because it's really a rhetorical question. There's not one congressperson, nor the president, right, nor his Secretary of State, nor any of his cabinet that is out there in California hiring people. Those are corporate heads that are doing that, and department heads that are doing that.
And who runs the government?
On behalf of some private, listen, we do not live in a communist society. We live in a country of private enterprise. That's that whole concept of freedom that I mentioned earlier. Private, this is private.
You're killing me.
Okay? There is no congressperson out there hiring Mexicans out there in California.
Marlon.
I've never seen Maxine Waters out there in California.
Oh my God. Are you really doing this?
The border. I've never seen that.
Marlon, you know good and well this government works for corporate and not the people. You know good and well the corporations have bought our government. What are you talking about? They are indirectly pulling strings for the very corporation that they serve. What are you talking about, man? Stop it.
Well,
Stop it.
Let me ask you this question. We
have no power.
Who do corporations support more, Democrats or Republicans?
Republicans.
Why is that the case?
Because they get tax breaks and all kinds of goodies. They get to protect their wealth under Republicans.
Okay, so why aren't they doing the same? Why aren't they supporting Democrats?
Because the Democrats haven't sold out to the same degree as the Republican Party, but they're well on their way. Okay, let me make this point.
You just said there's two sides of what's that saying there?
Two sides of the same coin. Yep, they are.
Two sides of the same coin. So I don't get it. Why does Trump have over $1 billion? Why has he raised over $1 billion, more than Obama raised? As a matter of fact, how was this clumsy, ignorant, immoral, nationalistic? Really, he's not nationalist. He's appealing to a nationalistic, what they call a populist base, and that's just a fancy word for racist. Okay, don't be confused by that. Trump is appealing to the lowest element within the society, what Clinton called the deplorable. Okay? Now, let me say this before I end the show. Here's what I want you to do, and I want your audience to do, since y'all can't, and I'm just providing the information. What you do with it is up to you. I want you to go out to the internet, and I want you to search for the European Declaration of Independence 2083. The European Declaration of Independence 2083. It is a white supremacist manifesto. It applies not only to Europe, but it applies to every place that white folks domicile. Okay? Trump is fulfilling the goals of that document to the T. Okay? Last year or the year before, the CIA came out with a global assessment on the rise of authoritarianism and nationalism. This is going on all over the world, not just in the United States. I've already mentioned BRITEC, right? It is anti-cooperation. In this document, it talks about, well, let me give you chapter 3 so that Black folks understand why we don't want support or why we don't want a president in office who could rise to the stature of a Mussolini or a Hitler, two fascists who basically overthrew their government with militias. Listen to what I'm saying to you. They overthrew their government with militias. And what do you think happens then? They kill their opponents. In this same document, this is some Machiavellian stuff. He said that. Kill your opponent. He said this from prison. He wrote that letter to one of the governors in the Kingdom of Florence. That was a letter he was writing to a noble in Florence. This is where Italy is today. Okay? Now, supposedly in the 30s, this was a socialist country in the same way that, which eventually became a fascist country, in the same way that Germany was a socialist country that became a fascist country. They did it, both of them did it with militia. What do we see in the United States? A rise of militias, a rise of hate crimes. Black people see what's going on, but have no clue whatsoever what the hell is going on. And what we're just not paying attention because we don't look at history. In particular, the history of our opposition. Okay? That's something I learned in the military. So you have to pay attention. What is that saying? You keep your friends close, but your enemies closer?
Yes.
We're dropping the ball. We are dropping the ball in every regard, and we do not sense what is happening in front of our very eyes. Okay? What I'm trying to say is this, is that this man, who is really just a front for nationalists all over the world, right? They are anti-United Nations. But that is an assembly of 190 countries or so that act in cooperation. They are a fraternity of nations. What is a nationalist, a populist, a nativist? They don't give a shit about that. They only care about their own nation and in particular their own culture and traditions. Trump is anti-United Nations. What is the European Union? That's another fraternity of nations. Trump is anti-European Union. That's in the book. That's in the manifesto. He is anti-NATO. That is a 29-member union of European unions that came together for the express purpose of defending themselves against Russians. Okay, with that time would have been the Soviet Union. We don't understand. We see what's going on, but we have no clue what's going on. And one of the things that happens during those types of movements is what is going on in India right now, the Kashmir region, is called ethnic cleansing. Okay? We don't get it. This term conservatism, we have no clue what it means. They want, you have a segment. They have a segment. Now, not all of them now, but it's a growing segment. They want to maintain their traditions. They don't care anything about fraternity. We're I'm raising the alarms, but nobody's listening.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Go out and find that document, and I'm going to offer this. Anyone that wants to challenge anything that I have said here today, I will meet you anywhere, any place, in front of any audience, on my own dime. If you want to argue anything that the professor is arguing here today, you can line up all your experts on one side and leave me on the lonely by myself, and I will deal with each one of them.
We appreciate you, Marlon. Could you just cite that white supremacist manifesto? You called it the European Declaration. I'm trying to type it.
European Declaration of Independence. Let me tell you who it was written by. It was written by a cultural nationalist, another fancy name for a white supremacist. He's a white boy who's in prison for killing 77 Norwegians. He turned against his own government and murdered 77 people. He's ex-military. The guy that you saw over in Newfoundland followed him and went into a mosque, two mosques, and killed all of those Muslims. This has been going on for the longest. The CIA and the FBI are aware of it. You hear the names like lone wolf mass killers. This manifesto, chapter 3, is how to conduct guerrilla war. It basically gives people the instructions to build dirty bombs, all of these other things, how to maintain weapons caches, which is really what the Second Amendment is all about. It allows these white boys who have a tradition of knighthood to maintain a cache of weapons should they need to overthrow the government. What do you think would happen? Look what happened in Michigan as an example. And the police punked out. The legislature, the governor punked out because they know how crazy these people are. Okay? I've already mentioned the black shirts and the brown shirts, the black shirts of Mussolini and the brown shirts of Hitler. Who are these people? They're displaced military people who side with fascists and who help two fascists, in this particular instance, to overthrow their own government. If you don't think it could happen here, you haven't been paying attention. All we need to do is go back and look at the American Revolution. What was that about? The overthrow of the federal government to maintain what? The tradition of what? Slavery. Come on now. We've been here before the Mayflower, and how we don't know this, it disturbs me. It disturbs me, number one, because I'm a man. Number two, because I'm a militarily trained man, right? Which means that I care about my family and my community. That's who I care about. And at 56 years old, the last thing I want to do is to suit up and go to war with somebody because they're trying to wipe out my community. That's the last thing I want to think about. But you know what? That has been consuming a lot of my thoughts here lately, is the idea of us forming our own militias.
Thank you.
That's how bad it is for me.
Thank you so much, Marlon. No, Nigel Cook says, we ADOS understand. We are not ignorant, bro. I'm also a U.S. Marine who holds 2 college degrees. It seems like you need to really be talking to these brothers with degrees like you who have served in the military. Y'all need to talk. You guys can find Marlon Aldridge at Marlon Aldridge on Facebook. Is there anything else you wanted to? Let me just round robin, family, as to what I hear Marlon saying. We aren't in a position to invoke a down ballot strategy because we don't have the numbers to make a difference that way. I'm also hearing him say, in lieu of that kind of strategy, it's imperative that we vote president on down and get beyond our ill feelings towards Biden and all the ways in which I believe he's been instrumental in hurting ADOS because he is, kind of race baiting and trying to get a majority of the white vote that usually trends conservative. And that if we support Trump, we do so to our own peril because we don't understand the white supremacist manifesto. And although we can see it happening all around us with the assassinations of our people with impunity, citizens are now taking up guns, the police are now entering our homes and murdering us. The white supremacist manifesto from the European Declaration of Independence is being played out right now. And we don't have time. We're not in a position to really exercise any right or any might because we don't have the numbers and we don't have the dollars. We're still fighting over whether or not we can aggregate dollars and people under a super PAC so we can actually put the proper Congress in there to get the reparations. So that's what I hear you saying when it comes to this upcoming election. Do not invoke a Democratic down ballot strategy. Read this manifesto and understand what the Republicans are really planning for us. And go the way of the Democrats until we have ADOS in a position to take over the House by 25%. I would venture to say the Senate too, right, Marlon?
Well, the Senate is a harder animal because Black people are concentrated and they're not concentrated all over the country. And see, what we have to realize is that each state, regardless of how small it is, still gets 2 representatives in the Senate. So there's just some places that we just don't live. So we're out-leveraged. Smaller rural areas out-leverage places like California because population is regardless of the population that you have, you still only get 2 senators. So when the founding fathers thought about the Senate, which is a compromise anyway, we have to understand that most of what happened during the founding of this country really revolved around not only some things about trying to make sure that a tyrant never came to power, but also maintaining the tradition of slavery. So the Senate was a compromise that allowed those smaller states to have a voice in government, but of course that was to the detriment of Black people. I wanted to say this because I hate to hear people say this. If I was the guy in college that they called me Malcolm X in college, glasses, suit, tie, whole 9 yards. And what I hate to hear people say from an academic standpoint is that I'm trying to down people because I've always down Black people because I've always been about Black people. What I am against is an unbalanced argument. Okay. One of the things as a professor that you can see among your students is that you can look at what they write and what they say to determine if they understand a particular concept. And that's really what I'm answering to is what people are saying, what they are writing, and how that doesn't align with history, how that doesn't align with psychology, how that doesn't align with sociology, economics, and all the other particular things. And that's really what I'm commenting on. And as an example, if we don't understand the importance of the president, then really you don't have an understanding of politics because the president is the most powerful piece on the chessboard.
Okay, Paula Bear, and this is the last comment I have time to take, family. We are so over time. I swear this thing looks like it's going almost 3 hours. Paula Barnett says, and this is great because I'm going to have you back so you can teach us political education. I find a ton of value in what you have to share. And for those who feel the same and want to learn a different perspective than that which Yvette imparts, you're welcome to join us back here at the Friends of ADOS TV, but I'm absolutely probably going to have him I know I'm going to have him back. I just am going to speak with him offline about a schedule on how we can get him back. Oh my God, I lost my girls. Paula Barnett, you know, I lost her comment. What happened here? Good Lord, I hate this thing. Okay, Jamie Burton Norris says again, I still don't hear why we should vote for Biden. Wow. I ain't scared of Trump. We've been living under the likes of Trump since we got off the boat. You won't get my vote by guilt tripping. Okay, hold on.
See, that's what I'm talking about right there. We do not understand the context which is going on globally, and that is the rise of authoritarianism. Okay? We see that in the United States. I am not the only one talking about this. I am simply editorializing. There are people and numerous people far smarter than me, I'm sure, on these particular subjects that are opining on the rise of authoritarianism. I've already said that the FBI had a committee meeting on the rise of global authoritarianism and this idea of nationalism. We are seeing it play out in politics in the United States with immigration policy. What do you think that's in this Declaration European of Independence? This is what I mean. The information is there. The most of it is about immigration, right? And the Muslims, what is it? The first 3 or 4 chapters are on Muslims. What did Trump do when he first came into office? He banned Muslims from the country. I don't get it that all the information is there and we see what's going on. We have no clue, earthly clue, what's going on. There's a chapter, and I think they took away the contents page. I'm going to post it on the friendsofADOS.com so that everyone can see it, because I got it early enough to maintain the contents page. It has something in there for everyone. No one is missed. Women aren't missed. The media aren't missed. No one's missed. There's even a part in there that read something to the effect. It had to do with the Russians. And it said something to the effect, and I'm paraphrasing, that we are not against socialism. They're talking about from a Western European standpoint. We aren't against socialism. We're against internationalism. And check this word out, multiculturalism. That is what they are against. Now, what is multiculturalism? Or should I say its greatest example would be the United Nations, wouldn't it? So when a European goes to the United Nations, you know what he sees? Mostly non-European. He is the minority. His landmass is only 7% of the landmass on the earth. And prior to his being able to venture out of Europe, he was trapped there, as a matter of fact, by the Ottoman Turks from European Muslims. He was trapped there. And you know what they did when they were there? For their 2,500 years? They fought each other. You know who the 5 largest ethnic groups there in Europe are? Number 1 is the Russians. Number 2 is the Germans. Number 3 would be the Italians, the British, the English, or whatever you want to call them, the French. Now, I may have the numbers a little bit twisted, but these ought to make sense to you. Who is our primary so-called adversary today that is really not our adversary, but the Russians? They are conservative as well. They want to conserve their traditions. White man on top, everybody else on the bottom. The European tradition is no different. The woman's on the bottom. That's why Hillary Clinton got dogged the way that she did. They can't accept a woman. Okay? It's not in their tradition. The woman's supposed to be in the house, barefooted, in the kitchen somewhere. That's their tradition. Okay? Now, also, hey, homosexuality is part of their tradition too. Let's bring that in there. And how do we know this? We can go back as far as Homer in the Iliad, and what do we see? Homosexuality. In one of the oldest documents of the ancient Greeks and Romans. So we're seeing history repeat itself, okay? So we hear a lot about gay rights and all of this old kind of stuff. Well, that's always been part of their tradition. What do we see? We see that the men abusing young people. Well, that's always been part of their tradition too. Look up pederasty. The word called pederasty. These are these older men consorting with younger men. That's part of their tradition. And we're surprised. We look at that. That's not part of our culture.
They're trying to make it a part of our culture.
Oh, yeah.
They're trying to make us the face of it.
That's right. That's right. They're trying to do the same thing that they did to the Jews. They're trying to replace the Jews of the Old Testament. Look up replacement theology. Challenge me on what I'm saying. This is history repeating itself constantly, over and over, in different forms, with ebbs and flows. This is what we see going on. They want to return to the way things were. Only white folks are the majority, right? Only their traditions are important. They don't even want to see you marching on TV. That's an offense to them. Now, I don't get that, but it's an offense to many of them.
Paula, I'm sorry. The comments are going so fast. Just take a breath. Serious question. If ADOS Super PAC buys some candidates to carry our agenda, what's to stop someone with more money, everybody else, from outbidding us?
Well, it's a matter, once you get into the Congress, let's say if you are elected, okay, you ride with the people that put you there. You owe them a debt now. You represent them. See, what we don't see is that these politicians, and I've already provided you the classic example. I see we have some of the, I hear all the negative comments about the CBC, but I've given you one example when they wanted to get in Obama's behind. But the Black community, as a collective, would not allow it. As a matter of fact, and I think I said this, when they were going on, the CBC was going on that 5-city tour, they were basically begging for permission to get in his behind. They didn't get it. And here we are, 8 years later, complaining about Obama. Now, how intelligent is that? The man isn't even in office anymore. And all I hear from this movement is Obama. All I hear is talk against the Democrats. I don't hear a peep about the Republicans.
Because we don't, that's because we don't vote Republican. We're dealing with the party that owes us for reparations and a Black agenda because we've been loyal to them and they're offering nothing. Every election cycle is, we have to wait for something to be offered. And nothing is ever being offered.
Let me tell you something. All you have to do is go to, I think it's governmenttrack.org. All of the legislation that you're going to see that has benefited us, even the executive orders. Now, we can talk about Obama, but with anything, there's always some good that they do. You can't say that there's never any good. If you look at what Obama did, and you look now and you see that Trump is undoing. Trump's platform was to undo what Obama did. So the question is, why is he trying to undo what Obama did if Obama is part of the same coin? You know, I'm going, from a logic standpoint, that doesn't make a bit of damn sense. We're not asking the right questions, and more importantly, we're listening to people, to use your words, with gig jobs, who can't find a job, right? So who come to the internet and create a job. Nothing wrong with that. I have nothing against that. They have no journalism experience. They're not held accountable before the law. They can say whatever they want to. And if they're smart, they're going to say things that appeal to people's emotions. They're going to rile people up in the same way that the nativists are being riled up by Trump, Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell, and all these other old fools that are out here, even the conspiracy theorists, I'm trying to think of some names of those fools, accountable to no one. At least with this pact, there is accountability before the law, right?
Yep.
There's accountability before a board of directors.
Yep.
You and I are subject to being fired.
Yep.
If we do something that is unethical, we can be taken before a court of law. Somebody on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram is accountable before no one. So they can incite people, provide them an unbalanced view, only focusing on one party, which is non-academic, by the way, and it's unethical even further. So these are some of the things that I would say are some of the negatives of social media. Not to say it doesn't happen in the regular media. I would be naive to think that doesn't happen. But we have to understand that the journalists, some of them aren't that great. They don't go to the extent that they want to go to. And even some of them are trying to incite. They're trying to rile people up so that they can sell advertisements and things like that. We can't rely on that. We have to do our homework, right? But I tell you what, this is probably what I think is more important. Be a human. What does that mean? I think, even with my radical self, that the majority of people are good, that human nature is good. I'm not a pessimist, right? I am a strategist, however, and I am a realist. You have to play the hand that you have been dealt. Now, the fact of the matter is, if Joe Biden got into office, what would happen is this. He would have to meet with the Congressional Black Caucus, right? There are 55 representatives there at that last count. And only one of them Republican, by the way. He doesn't have a voice. Or should I say his voice will not be as powerful as those 55 Democrats that could go to Joe Biden and say, this is what we want. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And if Joe Biden says, well, we're not going to give you that. Well, it's already understood that the black people are now going, unlike they did with Obama, they're going to support those 54 legislators going after Joe Biden, who, by the way, like I said, he will compromise, right? It's sort of easy to get something out of him because he's shown in history of compromising. For those of you that want to question his civil rights, I put a post there. You can go to the internet, find the same thing I did. His civil rights history has been misconstrued for the most part. Sound bites used in the media to distort what he was trying to say. It's all there. You can go out there and find that. Right? All of this is there. If we're talking about the CBC and what they haven't done, that's a lot. You go to their website, go up under the issues, you can find if you're willing to spend the time, you can find every piece of legislation that they have pro-offered. Governmenttrack.gov is another one. You can go there. Brilliant pieces of legislation put forth by our black legislators. Impressive. Impressive.
Are you go ahead.
It doesn't make a difference if Mitch McConnell doesn't bring it to the floor. He is the one that determines if the legislation comes to the floor. We have to understand that as part of the political process. We also have to understand just because you author a bill, it is stupid as hell or disingenuous to think that one person out of 535 people is the only one that'll have a say. How about those 40 black mayors that supported that 94 crime bill? How about the 22 members in the 42 members, well, I don't know how many members are there, but how about the members of the CBC that supported? But more importantly, how about the audiences, mama and daddy and granddaddy and grandmama supporting? These Negroes were off the chain in the 80s. I lived during the 80s, and most of us, at least the younger people, they lived through the 90s. The Negroes were off the chain killing each other. What did you expect the government to do when the community was asking them to do it?
And okay, stop. Who do you think brought the drugs and the guns into our communities to create this war to make a case for the 94 crime bill? Did we have the Capitol? Oh no, you have to care. You have to care. You have to care because See, now you're now doing what Biden is doing. You're now doing what Biden is doing. Biden dealt with effect and did not want to face the cause of how we became the super predators, as he called us. And I'm saying, if you've got a no, she called us super predators, but look at the tape. Biden called us predators first. Don't come to me with these stats about what we were doing without dealing with cause. Let's not act as if we had the Capitol to go out here and fly these drugs and guns into our community. You have to check out Tone's Freeway Crack in the System. It outlines what happened to Rick Ross, I think his name was, big drug kingpin down here in LA. You have to understand the institutional systemic racism that was in place all the way back to Nixon, the war on crime, and how all of this was created to make predators in our own communities, to make legislation to lock our men up for the very hand that they played and why we became predators in our own communities. That's just like folks right now trying to blame black folks who never set a foot outside the country. Many of us, most of us have not left the country. That's like blaming us for the COVID, for something that happened in a foreign land that we never visited. You don't want to deal with the cause of institutional systemic racism back of why we have COVID, job discrimination, and environmental racism. Everybody want to talk about effect. And so you did that same little slick move right there. I felt you right there. I felt you slip and slide. That was slick. That was slick because brothers did not fly this drugs and guns into their communities. They did not take public. No. Let me finish. No. Let me finish. They did not. Okay, listen. I'm not talking theories. We got public school money right here in Long Beach, and I've shared this with you, that my daughter was able to be educated amongst white folks till she hit middle school. Then they want to kick her back to the neighborhood. I own a condo. My tax dollars pay for all this public school education down here. But they are taking the public school dollars out of the black and brown schools and putting them into the white schools and segregating us. They'll let you come along up until a point. But there is a systemic, institutionalized racism that says your kids get to be dumbed down while their kids get to be successful. And I told you how I found that superintendent at one of these local schools, and I, just with the authority in my voice, he knew exactly who the email had come from. That you will not break the spirit of my daughter and her brilliance on the back of the jungle on my tax dollar and educate these white kids. Quick, fast, and in a hurry. My daughter was moved to a white school 20 miles each way. I had to arrange for her to go for 3 years. So if you're taking jobs out of our community, hooking up all the immigrants with money to own businesses in our communities, robbing us of education with our tax dollars while educating the white public schools with our tax dollars, those of us who are fortunate enough to own property, where in the world were we supposed to get money when you rob us of jobs, businesses, and education in our own communities? Where were we to get the money to fly over into wherever the hell this stuff was being shipped in from? And where were we supposed to get the capital for these guns if they weren't planted in our communities? You got recent stories of vans sitting pile high with Nikes and shit for the kids to come in there and in Chicago, and they go in there and they steal those shoes, and then they get arrested. You got these places where they take black folks in Chicago where they ain't never seen nor heard from again. They just fall off the radar. So please don't insult our intelligence by acting as if, I need you. No, because you can't say,
a very complex issue.
I'm oversimplifying, really.
Let me ask you this, and then I got to run. Let me ask you this, and I have to run. When Madea was getting her house shot up by Pookie, do you think she gave a damn where those drugs came from? That's my question to you. It's more complex than how the drugs got here. Okay? Madea doesn't want Pookie shooting up her house. So if you care about Madea, you're going to make sure that Pookie doesn't shoot up her damn house, because Madea doesn't give a damn how those drugs got into the country. She don't want her house shot up. Okay, so it's more complex than throwing out some generality.
It's not general. It happened. It happened, and it continues to happen.
Well,
okay.
I tell you what, if Pookie's shooting up my house, the last thing I'm going to do is fly down to Central America somewhere and try to stop the drugs from coming in. Okay, I'm gonna deal with Pookie. Is who I'm gonna deal with. I'm gonna do the same thing that our legislators did at the behest of the black community.
Even if government was complicit, even if the government is the reason back of why Pookie is shooting up Madea's house.
Which came first? Pookie shooting up the house or government action to stop Pookie from shooting up the house?
No. What came first was government. What came first? I know, but what came first was government's intervention in making us a predator kind of community. That's what came first. Okay. And Biden was in the cahoots with all of that. That's what came first. Okay. And I'm saying, let's deal with cause. Huh?
What about Bill Clinton? Why are you letting Bill Clinton off the hook? He was the president.
I don't let Bill Clinton off the hook. I'm telling you.
Why are you letting those 100 senators? Why are you letting those senators that voted for it? Why are you letting them off the hook?
I'm not letting. Because guess what? They're not running.
Black mayors off the hook?
They're not running for president.
Why are you letting those CBC members off the hook?
They're not running for president.
What difference does that make?
I wouldn't be coming for Biden if he wasn't running for president. If he set his old ass dementia self down somewhere, I wouldn't be coming for Biden. Jamie is. Let me get my audience. Jamie says, so you're saying to vote for Biden, to vote against authoritarianism. If that's the only reason, I'd rather choose the person who won't take my guns away. Black militias are already formed. You're late, Marlon, if you're just now thinking of that.
Let me tell you something as a military person. I'm sure my Marine buddies out there can attest to this. You give me 100 trained men, and I will put them up against 1,000 untrained men any other day. As a matter of fact, I will take 100 and wipe out those 1,000 men because they aren't trained to fight. Okay? You Negroes running around here with guns. I can see it now. You're fighting with these militias, these white militias, these cultural conservatives, and you run out of bullets. I'm going to use your excuse. What are you going to do? Call a timeout? Go over to the white man and ask him to give you some bullets? He's going to shoot you in your damn head. We are not prepared to fight anyone. We're outnumbered. For one, we're not organized, right?
Yeah.
We're not trained to fight as a team. We're not trained to communicate. We have no means of production of supplying ourselves. We would be just like the Palestinians. We have to put those guns down, and we'd end up throwing rocks. is what, or using a slingshot or something to that effect.
Shamira said Trump reversed all the executive orders that was passed by Obama for groups like LGBTQ and immigrants.
He went down the whole list. That was his agenda. Okay, for those of you receiving student loan money, there was some provisions put in that to protect you from these debt collectors. Well, he took those out. There are all kinds of things that he put in place to protect the consumers. Because what are consumers? Those are workers, right? The majority of them are workers. He put in consumer protection laws, even put in a whole new bureau for consumer protection. These are some of the things that you don't hear from a gig commentator on Facebook and YouTube. We aren't getting the whole story because they're non-academic. They're sent there to excite you so that they can then put that donate button up there and get paid. Then go driving around in big old Cadillacs.
You're saying they pimping us? They pimping us? They pimping us.
Look at that one dude. I hear that one dude. Who's the one dude that did the cut? What's that? Who's the one guy? You know who I'm talking about. He has the other black movement. What's he called?
Tariq Nasheed, Foundation of Black Americans.
What's those series he developed?
The Hidden Color series.
Hidden Color. Yeah, he riled y'all Negroes up with that non-academic bullshit. And I hear he living in a big old house out there in California. Laughing at you Negroes.
Yeah. He is a Republican. And calling us Trump supporters. He calling us Trump supporters.
Yeah, maybe I ought to give me a gig job to rob you Negroes. But I can't do that. I can't rob Negroes. But I can't do it. I can't do it.
Well, Marlon,
so I can go toe to toe with the best of them. I can get out here and excite all kinds of shit.
Well, Jamie wants to see you battle with Montaga, Antoine Tucker, who is running for Congress in New York City. So perhaps we can arrange that, Jamie. I don't want to hold you. I've held you for 3 hours. This was only supposed to be an hour-long show. Family, you're going to do what you're going to do. I'm going to have to meditate over what to do after this very spirited conversation. Marlon and I have these conversations often, but I'm going to have to meditate on what I really need to do when I go into those polls, because I see all sides of this argument, even as highly spirited as I am when I fight for us, because I understand how we got here. And I understand that government did this to us. And I understand that it's both sides of government that did this to us. But I also know we don't have the money or the numbers to really make a difference in a protest vote right now, in all honesty. We don't have enough momentum. We don't have enough people that believe in that. We've got more folks that believe in unseating Trump than they do believing in withholding and filling in ADOS and voting Democratic down ballot. So it don't matter to the handful of us that choose to invoke that strategy. But I'm trying to think big picture. And I certainly don't want us to be set up to be slaughtered by either party. But I do believe that the only way we get reparations is to get a Congress that supports it from the chest. And right now we don't have that. And we're not in a position to replace that. We don't have the money to replace that right now. But I believe that if we aggregate dollars, visit friendsofADOS.com if you believe like we believe. And I believe that in the next 2 to 4 years, we can be real contenders in this race if we really put our money where most other groups do in our politics. And I don't ascribe to this nonsense that we don't have money to do that. As I said prior, if we gave $1 a piece every ADOS, we'd be at 36 million. A correction here, someone shared, I think it was Shamira, that Andrew Yang raised 16.8 million, not 90 million, not 900 million. Okay.
I'm thinking it was a super PAC that supported him, not his campaign, and I can't remember the name of it. If I can find it, I'll put it on Facebook. Not his campaign, but it was a super PAC. Is what if I didn't say that, that's what I meant to say.
Oh no, Jamie, I'm not saying that we support Biden now. No, based on what I just said. No, I'm not telling people how to vote. I said that I'm going to go into meditation about my Democratic down ballot strategy. That's what I'm choosing to do this election cycle in protest. And I brought Marlon on. For those who are on the fence, Freeway Rick Ross has a live IG chat almost daily. Freeway. Okay, listen, there's over 300 comments in the thread. I'm hopeful that Marlon will come on there when he gets time to comb through those and address some of the things I couldn't get to today. But no, I want you to vote your conscience. I just wanted you to have a more balanced perspective about the other side of what, this could create, and not, Marlon supports voting for Biden and Democrat all the way down. Okay. I needed his perspective on this show today. For those who are on the fence, not everybody in this movement is for a Democratic down ballot strategy. Not everybody in this movement is going to be voting Democrat. Some of them will be voting for Trump. Lots of folks have inboxed me. They won't say it out loud because they'll be nailed to a cross. But Trump, due to the shenanigans of the Democratic Party right now in this election, Trump is winning over ADOS votes. And I'm telling you that's what's problematic with the Democrats right now, that I brought Marlon on to make this case so that, whatever folks decide, they can do so in great conscience that they're serving their people. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining this lively discussion, for your comments. We're going to go through and address them. I will be bringing Marlon back. I do believe that we do need more political education. And I believe, as studied as he is, and having done activism for a long time in Dayton, Ohio, before he aligned with me in the ADOS movement, I believe he has a lot of credible arguments and positions, but they're not from an emotional place. I'm a very emotional person, and I just kind of put pieces together. But I'm not as well-read or well-studied at politics the way he is. So I believe there's tremendous value to us as ADOS to learn politics through his lens, because he studied it thoroughly in a way that I haven't. The rest of you may have, I have not. So I think there's value in bringing him back. Thank you so much, Marlon. Thank you so much, audience. And with that said, I want you guys to make it a beautiful, safe, God-inspired rest of your Saturday and Memorial weekend. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever ADOS and its allies are, God truly is, because you are the face of God. You are the voice of God. You are the body temple of the Spirit of the living God. I love you, Black. I love you, strong. Peace, family. Mwah. Ciao for now. Till next time.